And we are live. Guys, I am joined tonight by a special guest who's very controversial, it seems. Lots of people blocking him. And, I'm just going to play the video for you so you can hear what these people in these Twitter spaces are saying about this guy. I'm not going to mention who these people are just because I think they're trolls who want attention. And their names are disgusting. So. Okay. So you want. So I seen this clip, and these guys are talking about some of that stuff. Twitter Spaces are interesting. I've tried to join a few where people like talk over me and block me out. It's just not a good format. I prefer these type of long range one-on-one. And first off, I usually do my homework. I haven't done all my homework into this, but I'm pretty good at a lot of this stuff. So we're going to have you take the floor and show us what your best evidence is. This film, apparently, you're saying that this. Where did this film come from? What are we watching here, and where did this come from?
Yeah, well, thanks, Jeremy, for having me on here. I appreciate it. And yeah, no, I think that first of all, going into the video that you just showed, I think that everything that is mentioned there is categorically false. And I think the scary part to me is this idea that people try to have to separate me from the videos because we won't get to the bottom of it. When the reality is, like, I might be the only person on the planet actually trying to get to the bottom of it, really going through the story here. So these videos are dated back to 2014. That's confirmed. We have the Internet Archive footage. I can present it, right now if we want to take a look at that
Yeah,
while I'm
let's do
speaking.
that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good
Why don't
idea.
you share your screen and take the
Yep.
floor with that? Because I'm definitely skeptical.
Yeah.
What is
So,
this we're looking at here? This
so
is
this right here is archive. And what we're looking at on this archive here is from an account named Regicide Anon. Now, I saw one of these two videos that we're going to look at here.
is this on YouTube?
It was originally on YouTube. You can no longer find it anymore. It's been deleted.
But you
So
can
you can
find
only
this
find it
on
on
way
the
back
archive.
on the
Yeah.
archive on
Yep.
archive.com.
And so
The
this
way
is the
back.
website right here. I've got links to it that I usually post. It's going to be part of my all evidence that'll be coming out in the next few days as well, so that everyone can go look for themselves at the footage. There's also
Can
thousands
you
of people.
post a link to this right now in the private chat here on the StreamYard link so that I can bring it up on my screen as
Yeah,
well? I just want
absolutely. I'm
to
going to post both of them for you. Okay.
I want to confirm this because if this is, a lot of times this stuff has a habit of disappearing and taking down.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
Uh,
it's a little late now, but yeah, it would be tough for them to get rid of it after this long. But there were thousands of people that saw these videos
okay.
back in 2014. I actually saw the thermal of the MQ-1C Great Eagle back then,
So
and this was well before I was even into looking at the UAP videos. And so, from that perspective, for me, this is something that was, I had no idea of a basis to even understand this footage to be real. And then in August 8th, these videos reemerged on Reddit. And when they reemerged on Reddit, that's where I saw the second video. And that's where the community started digging into it. This originated as a community led investigation. Now, when we're watching this here, we're seeing these orbs transversing around the plane, and it looks very exotic. And people have graphed this pattern that we're seeing here, and they're encircling the plane. And then we get to this cloud that you're looking at here. They begin to circle around it from a ring formation, vertically. And then we're going to see this zap happen. When you see that zap happen, it accurately illuminates the clouds in the foreground and in the background. So this is a really big clue that what we're seeing here is fully authentic, because these clouds, these volumetric clouds, are very accurate. There's no discrepancies anywhere in this footage. Either this is an absolutely perfect fake, or it's just the real deal, essentially. Now, just to be clear, which screen are we looking at? Are we looking at yours?
I'm looking at my screen. I just wanted to bring it up and play it on my screen to confirm that this is a a real YouTube
let's do it on
video.
yours then.
Real YouTube video posted in 2014.
Yep.
It's no longer up, but you can find it here on the archive, which is interesting.
Yeah. Now, if you notice the description down there below, it's got a lot of clues in it. We can see that it was actually uploaded May 19th, 2014, but we can see that it says received March 12th, 2014, which is just 4 days after the plane went missing. And additionally, it says source protected. Now, we've looked at other videos that this person had uploaded. There was a number before this, and none of them say protected on them. They say like email submission, other things like that. So this is potentially an indicator here that the person that leaked it to this Regicide Anon account or a group that this Regicide Anon account was part of. And then it took like 6 to 8 weeks to convince them that this was legitimate footage, or potentially there's another reason why they held on to it. But my assumption is that they had to convince them the same way that we had to be convinced by looking, and getting 9 years later to get to the point where we could even believe this to be real. A lot of people, they look at this satellite footage you've pulled up here, they think that they're looking up as opposed to looking down. That's how little context people have to understand this to be real. I don't think we've ever seen video satellite footage before this.
This is high altitude and it's very still footage. If it is.
So what we think is happening there is it's something called the Cyber system that is pulling satellite data all across the world. And I've got a media recording of it that I pulled from Lockheed Martin that shows that these satellites are constantly scanning in IR in huge, wide range. You can also see it looks a little bit jerky, and that's because it's 6 frames per second, meaning that what we're looking at is probably a very wide field of view, and it's been cropped. And so you can also see the mouse. There's like a black mouse that sometimes comes on the screen. People wonder if it's something else that's on the screen, but it's actually just a mouse. The mouse actually goes off the screen in the top right and in the bottom left, indicating that the field of view or the screen that they're looking at is bigger and it's been cropped down. In addition, when they move the mouse, there's some coordinates in the bottom left. The coordinates don't move when the mouse moves. They only move when they move the frame of view. And it looks like they've cropped the frame of view to keep the plane in the center of focus. So a lot of clues can be gleaned from this. In fact, almost everything that we've deduced here comes just from looking at the footage and then comparing it to the evidence that's already out there to come to a very, in my opinion, a pretty complete story of what really happened. One of the very noticeable things is a smoke trail coming out of the back of the plane. That is too low for contrails to form. And we know because we're looking at cumulus clouds there. These cumulus clouds only form underneath or around 5,000 feet. And contrails form above 30,000 feet. So this plane is flying very low. It's actually consistent with a landing formation. We know it's descending as well, and it's making a standard circle turn here. So we can actually glean a lot of information from this, especially when we begin to corroborate it with witnesses that were nearby. Now, my initial reaction was we must be looking at non-human intelligence.
So where did this take place? You said there were witnesses on the ground that saw this, or on boats?
Yeah. So the coordinates that we see in the bottom left there indicate the Nicobar Islands, and they changed 6 times. Or actually, they changed 8 times. We can only read the coordinates 6 times. There's a higher quality version of this footage that was uploaded by somebody else later on that actually makes it easier to see. I'll go ahead and put that in your chat for you so you can take a look at it.
Okay.
The higher quality footage here, if you click on that YouTube link I just sent you, you'll be able to see. Go ahead.
All right. So higher quality footage here. Here's a video. YouTube link.
In the higher quality one, you can read the satellite designation much better. It says NROL 22. And I want to point out that all of the debunks that if you Google them, they are all wrong, objectively wrong. They claim it's NROL 33. And they do that to try to convince somebody who would look at this that the satellite wouldn't be up in time because that satellite didn't go up until 2015, NRL 33. NRL 22 went up in 2006, and that is a command satellite. And we know that because it's got a millennia orbit, which is a very oblong orbit, and it sits around the North Pole most of the time, which is the perfect place to be able to use signals intelligence, SIGINT, which is a network of information between these devices. The second video we're going to look at is going to be an MQ-1C Gray Eagle. And if you Google SIGINT payload right now, the very first hit you're going to get at the top is an MQ-1C Gray Eagle.
So one of the things people were saying is, oh, they didn't have AI, or they didn't have the ability to really, I mean, they didn't have AI, you know, because one of the questions was, you could make this kind of a footage with AI if you really worked on something like this, right?
So part of the argument too is that this might be the last time we have to be able to reveal footage like this to be authentic, because we know it comes from 2014, which predates AI deepfakes by many years, at least commercially available.
Well,
now if you say 2023, okay, then this, you know, it's a whole new realm, right? If you say 2023, now you can say, okay, AI might be able to create this, right? And actually, ironically enough, I think we do see AI in the videos. When we're looking at those orbs, they're like a perfect wave pattern. I don't believe we're looking at anybody flying in little orbs. I think that what we're looking at here is a computer program that's operating and controlling these orbs like a targeting mechanism. So when you look at this, you can see in the bottom left, you can see that satellite designation. Go ahead.
I just want to make one point before we move on from that, though, because I was around back in, I don't know if you remember this video. This was in 2007 here. Okay. I'll post this up in the link for people to go check out. This was made with a software called View 6, right? And View 6, has a specific tree, palm tree in the software, and they found the palm tree was identical, and they were able to, you know, I mean, you look at the video. This is a pretty convincing fake from 2007, right?
I mean, not to me, but maybe to other people. I mean, the thing is, when you get
see stuff like
amazing, up close like that, it's
that was just amazing. When I saw that video in 2007, man, I was convinced that this was real at first until someone posted the debunk where they show, like, look, all the trees are the same. You know, you can tell that it was software, but it, you know, very realistic.
So the thing about this is that we have two videos.
You know, this predates 7 years. 7 years before the video that you're showing, right?
And in those videos, the way you produce those is you overlay that object you see, you overlay it over real footage, right? Now the issue here is that we can see these orbs traversing through the plane multiple times, and they actually get accurately distorted when they go through the plane. So it's a lot easier to take a picture of a fake spaceship and put it into a real video than it is to do what we're seeing here, where it would have to go through this plane. So either the whole plane and everything is fake,
well, that too,
or everything's real, right? And we'll see it from the other angle as well, where we'll see the orbs are accurately distorted when they.
So what you're suggesting that what happens here on the video? This is not a camera effect, not CGI, not, you know.
Everything you're seeing here is real, and the reason for that is that you can see the zap accurately illuminate the clouds as well. Now that's extremely difficult to fake. Yeah. So you can see it, and this we also think indicates that what we're looking at is a false color IR. This is nighttime. This is not daytime that we're looking at here. There's no shadows anywhere. So you see that zap, how it accurately illuminates the clouds? That's very difficult to fake. Extremely difficult, especially if all the clouds are also accurate. So this is some of the best evidence that what we're looking at is fully authentic in terms of even the zap here effect that we see.
But where did the plane go and all this stuff? It just did.
Yeah. So that's part of the science side of it. So if you want to dig into that part, there's 3 options that we've come up with, and open to more if people can come up with them. First one that we would rule out is cloaking. Is this plane being fully cloaked? The thing about that is the smoke trail stops. Even if you were somehow able to cloak all electromagnetic signatures so that this plane just disappears, we would still see the byproduct, the smoke coming out of the back. We would see that smoke continue forward. And the leaker actually moves the video to the right here to show us that this plane did not continue forward. The other one is annihilation. You know, why is this plane not being quote unquote destroyed or, you know, deatomized? And the answer to that Go ahead.
It just didn't. It just disappears in a thin air. We don't see debris. It's not like it got blasted or vaporized or something.
Yeah, and the explosion would be much bigger if it was some type of explosion, because E equals MC squared. The energy and mass have to go somewhere. This is a mass of a 777-200. So if it was equivalent to like an atom bomb, this is much larger than an atom bomb. The destructive power would be huge, as opposed to this zap that we see where it's just gone.
So this video, you found this video that someone on Archive, or who found the video, or how'd you find out about it?
So I saw this when I had seen it in 2014, but at least I'd seen the thermal one that we'll show next. And
Okay.
I did not realize there was 2 videos at that time back in 2014. Plus, I wasn't even into UAPs or anything like that until 2017, which is part of why I argued that our collective conscious had to rise to a point where we could even understand this stuff to be real. I mean, I didn't know what thermal or FLIR footage looked like. I definitely didn't have any idea what satellite footage looked like. I didn't know that AI would be a thing anytime soon. I didn't know that superconductivity, we might be on the verge of that. I also didn't know anything about wormhole papers. I actually didn't even know wormholes were theoretically possible until I started digging into this. Now, the only reason why I've chosen to try to be like the spokesperson, spearhead, whatever you want to call me on this, is that I have a background of a security clearance that, you know, makes me highly credible. And that nobody else really stepped up to the plate. I actually tried to get the media to run with this. Nobody would jump on it. And so early on, I promised my followers, okay, we'll do it ourselves. But this was posted on Reddit in August 8th, and it was actually previously posted in January. And it had been posted probably several more times before that as well. This footage has been out there since 2014. But in August 8th was the only time people really started to take it seriously, after they saw the second video as well. And that's when people started investigating. And just to the video that we saw at the beginning of this, I've not plagiarized anyone. I've not stolen anyone's work. Any work that people post on social media is posted publicly. And I've quoted those people every time I've used their work, and given them credit, even the people that I don't agree with. And so a lot of that work has authenticated the videos. In fact, the debunkers have possibly authenticated more aspects of the videos than everybody else. They gave up because they realized all they were doing was authenticating the videos, and they didn't want to be doing that. They were able to help us authenticate the turn and make sure that the turn was accurate. They were actually even able to authenticate the satellite.
Is that true, guys? The audience, I just want to ask the audience if that's true. If people are, you know, trying to debunk this and coming out more convinced. Now, my question is, right? So have you looked into any of the other interesting things about the flight? Right. So there was this issue of free scale semiconductor, right?
Yeah, we've looked into it all. So free scale semiconductors, I think that if you look out there on the conspiracy angle, you'll see that there's this idea of this patents. Now, I believe it's a little bit of a red herring.
20 people. They had 20 people on the.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm more interested in. But there is this
right?
other aspect where they claim that these 5 people own these patents. The problem with that is that the company technically owns the patents. So even if these people disappear, it's not really having a material effect on the situation. Now, the free scale semiconductor scientists, there were 20 of them on board, and they were engineers and scientists. 12 of them were Malaysian nationals, 8 were Chinese nationals. This to me is the motivation, the motive here, because you've got intellectual property that they have. They were going to help upgrade power plant or upgrade plants in China. They were theoretically directly connected to the technology we see. If what we're looking at there with those orbs is utilizing superconductivity, we found a 2005 NSA report about the commercial emergence of superconductivity, and free scale semiconductors is listed 9 times in it. And in that, the conclusions and intro basically state that this technology might be available by 2010 or 2012, which is a couple of years before our videos. In addition to that, it says it would require government funding, otherwise it's not going to happen. To me, this is the motivation, is that you've got these highly skilled individuals who might know about the technology, and then you're either trying to prevent them from going to China or you're trying to make sure they're safe, right?
They also had some, there was some allegation. I found one device that looked like a patent that could be applicable for smart dust, smart like contact tracing and smart dust technology, which is like a RF wired, you know, kind of like
I've
It
heard a
all
lot of
runs on.
different things. So I've heard that. I've heard this nanochips, but the one thing that I heard on another podcast, which really
Yeah.
piqued my interest, was they might be able to develop chips for quantum computers that utilize room temperature superconductivity. And if that's the case, that seems like very advanced capabilities for very powerful computers, even computers that maybe we're seeing control those orbs,
Yeah, it'd be
honestly.
quantum computers at that point.
Quantum computers, yeah. And that's quantum computing has always been very interesting for me. Freescale Semiconductors also split off of Motorola, I believe, back in 2004. And
Didn't
there was a
like
bunch of
the Rothschilds own it and stuff too?
yeah, and that's
The
the thing about the patents thing where like it reverted to them, and I just imagine
yeah,
that they're going to get it no matter what. Like you're not going to do this for that
yeah.
purpose, right? But sure,
Yeah,
that can be a motive if
there's
people want
lots
to
of other
believe it.
ways to steal stuff, or I don't know,
Yeah,
but they had to kill these people on board. There's got to be some kind of
and what we
motive for
found out
that,
is
if
that
that was indeed.
we'll go into it in a minute or in a little bit, but like we've kind of concluded at this point, there's a lithium-ion battery fire aboard this plane, so this plane was already doomed. So you don't need to crash the plane or zap the plane with a laser or any other weapon or shoot it down. This plane, everybody was going to be doomed if they just did nothing. If it tried to crash into the ocean, it was going to break apart. It's the middle of the night. There's no light anywhere. A lot of the passengers probably don't know how to swim because mainland Chinese generally don't learn how to swim, and that was the vast majority of the passengers. So all they really had to do was wait this out if they didn't want to do anything. So to me, it's got to be a matter of keeping this intellectual property in play, or preventing it from getting to China and stealing the scientists or engineers, however you want to look at it.
So another one of the things I was looking on the patents for those scientists' names that were listed on as the patent holders and stuff, and I found a couple patents on some stuff for interfering with radar systems, like for airplanes, and so they could basically like make this thing go invisible for radar for long periods of time with one of these technologies. And I found a lot of these other things. It actually interestingly linked me to a lot of stuff that I came across earlier in some of my investigations into
it's pretty cool,
into 9/11. Because 9/11 you had 4 airplanes that were hijacked and flown, and there was this company called Systems Planning Corporation International, which actually developed these systems that could, hack the onboard autopilot, lock out cockpit controls, and upload augmented GPS waypoints into the autopilot that the plane would then follow. So they could basically like fly the planes by, a remote control setup, from the ground. And what's crazy is, as crazy as that sounds, there was a X-Files. It was called The Lone Gunmen. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
Yep.
But this aired in March of 2001. A couple months before 9/11, and in that pilot episode that aired in back in March of 2001.
Oh, that was the spinoff. Yeah.
They basically predict 9/11. In the damn X-Files.
X-Files has done that quite a few. I don't know if you noticed the Resurgence one where they talk about the pandemic as well. Like it's pretty bizarre. They predict that as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's life imitating art, and sometimes art imitating life. I mean, there's a show called Manifest that actually predicts what we think happened with MH370 too. So
it's crazy.
It's hard to say.
They talk about it goes much deeper than that, because they talk about this scenario 12D, that it's airline counterterrorism scenarios that they found when they hack in the first very part of the video. And then they get on the plane to try to stop the whole thing, and they find out that the plane is being flown by remote control. It's being flown from the ground, and it almost flies into the World Trade Center. It's just like the coincidences are it's too much. So some in the X-Files had writers that knew stuff that was going on in this business. Yeah.
The remote control thing is very interesting, because a lot of people argued that this plane might have been remote controlled, and the media went to a lot of effort to try to claim that that's impossible. And I'm not 100% convinced it's impossible, but as we determined pretty conclusively that there must be a lithium ion battery fire, it kind of changes the narrative in terms of what's more likely. Now, it doesn't rule out espionage at all. Like, the crazy part about this is, even though we're very confident on this lithium ion battery fire, it's kind of a question of, did it begin naturally, or was there some interference? And apparently there's these 2 AWACS that are nearby as well. And it's like, are they just surveilling the plane, or is there more going on there? I mean, if you can teleport an airplane, then you can definitely hijack an airplane remotely, right? At least in my opinion, but that's just me.
All right, so I want to make sure I keep track of all these links that we've shown so far in the archive here, because I want to post all these afterwards for people to check out. I'll bring this one back
So
up.
going back to the videos, some of the strongest evidence that they're real, though, is that mouse that we see that moves across the screen. What we were able to determine from that is that it had a different frame rate than the background. The background is 6 frames per second in the satellite video, but the mouse is at 24 frames per second. And what that indicates is what we're looking at is a Citrix session that's logged into the actual spy satellite database. And we can tell looking at the video, we're not looking at a camera phone. We're not looking at a camera that's been set up behind the computer, right? What we're looking at is a screen recording. So this person was logged in. They did a screen recording, a cropped screen recording. And we can glean a lot of information from this. First of all, they were caught. There's no way they weren't going to get caught if they found this footage. If the government finds this footage on the internet, they're going to be able to figure out who was logged in at various times where they could have done this. They'll be able to narrow it down pretty quickly, and they're going to catch this person. It tells us that this person wanted us to be able to solve the mystery, right? We see these coordinates that indicate the Nicobar Islands down here, which is on the known flight path of MH370. We can also tell that the top of the plane is lighter than the bottom of the plane, which is consistent with the Malaysian Airlines coloring, which is white on the top and gray on the bottom.
So interesting thing. I just sorry to interrupt you. You made a great point, and I don't want to like miss out on that because that's confirmable if this was indeed leaked by an insider. We might be able to go look up an OSI investigation. There'd be an investigation there. I don't know if it was OSI, but whoever's the governmental body,
NCIS. We found them.
NCIS.
In fact, I have Freedom of Information Act, all the information around the case, because I think that there might be clues in there. They might screw up and not.
Well, someone might have gotten charged for leaking it too. So if you could look that up, they might have tried to keep it secret.
We'll go into that. We looked it up.
Do you have anything?
Go into that later.
Do you have a name or anything? Did you find a person?
Do I have a name? Yes. Do you want me to share my screen and we want to go over that right now, or do you want to look at the other videos?
Share your screen. Absolutely.
Here's the background while I'm pulling this up. So we gleaned all this information, right? Like I realized, okay, it's a Citrix session. They had to have got caught. And so I was sitting there one night and I'm like, I have a really good psychological profile for what this person what they might be like, right? They leaked this within 4 days. They wanted to get it out right away. The thermal, it looks like it was a thermal color added on top of a FLIR footage, meaning they're probably an operator, someone who has knowledge of how the systems work. And it was somebody as well that's like a patriot. They're not a spy. They didn't hand this off to China. They removed all this HUD information as well, which had me believe that they thought they were doing the right thing. They thought that, okay, no one's going to solve this case unless I leak this information. So I thought, okay, this is probably an active duty officer to some degree. And then I had this idea that, okay, maybe I can find them. And what I realized right away is unless you're under martial law, they can't hide these charges. These have to be public to some degree. So then it becomes a matter of, okay, how do they obfuscate this, right? And so I started looking up everyone who was charged with espionage, willful retention of classified data, willful retention of national security secrets. And I wasn't able to find it. I was looking at all these really popular people that everybody would know, the Chelsea Mannings of the world, the Snowdens, all this stuff. None of them were even close to what I was looking for. And I started doing some date range searches going back between like 2014, 2017. I figured they would have caught them probably in a year or so, right? They're not going to get
investigation.
Exactly. A year or two is kind of the time frame I was looking for. And then I hit pay dirt. I found Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lynn. So let me pull this up right now. Ooh. So I found a ton of articles about this guy. And one of them really piqued my interest was the strange case of Edward C. Lynn. They tried to get this guy for espionage and put him in prison for life.
Share it, man.
I'm pulling it up right now for us. So, in fact, let me go to the real deal instead of just the archive. I've archived all my stuff, too, just in case it were to disappear off the internet mysteriously.
Yeah.
And so I look at this guy. I find like 7 articles. I read all of them. This guy had been abused while he was in pretrial detainment. They threw the book at this guy. First thing I saw, Experience in Signals Intelligence, SIGINT. I've been writing about SIGINT for weeks. And I'm like, wait a minute. This guy's got signals intelligence. He was aboard a U.S. Navy Lockheed Martin EP-3 Ares 2, which I looked this plane up, and one of the capabilities is real-time video playback. It's also used for, types of all types of spy missions. Potentially it could be used for trying to find this plane and track it. They might have been there on the night. So he gets arrested September 11th, 2015. which is a year and a half after our event. They actually ran a sting operation on him, the FBI did, to try to prove he was a spy because they were unable to prove that he actually shared any information with China. He was Taiwanese American and he became a naturalized citizen.
When they arrest you on 9/11, dude, that's
that's a little sus, right?
Dude, what the heck?
They tried to get him for life in prison. This was the first major incident of espionage by an active duty member since the end of the Cold War. So this immediately, I'm looking at this and I'm going, this is going to be the guy. Like they're coming at it with everything, right? These videos are huge. Redacted charge sheet. You want to go look at the charge sheet? Look how redacted this is. We found it. Look at all the redactions on this. They redacted every date. All the dates are redacted.
You know, even also redacted. I've seen all your posts except this one.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen a lot of the people arguing over the videos, which I'm still not convinced on. You know, I'll just be honest. I think the video evidence is just kind of, you know, I like the when you start getting into, you know, names of people with operators and intelligence people, and then you got actual charges and then you know, now we're talking.
So one of the things was there was growing doubt the government could actually prove he was a spy. He had this high level of clearance above top secret with access to the Navy's black program portfolio. So he had access to all the super secret kind of technology stuff that they might have out there. Part of this special projects patrol squadron called the Exploitation Squadron or Special Projects Squadron 2. His clearance or his assignment was from February 2014 to March 2016, and we know he was arrested in September of 2015. So this is 1 month before the plane goes missing. So he's on the right type of squadron at the right time here. We can see it gets better. And so here's the name of this squadrons, this VPU-2. This is where they try to do this sting operation on him for like 1 month before he gets arrested. And they I think they had him try to sleep with this woman and then like her try to get him to tell her secrets so that they could kind of build a better spy case against him. Because otherwise I think they didn't think they were going to get him on a spying because he just didn't spy, right? Like the person that leaked this was trying to do it to tell the world what really happened, not to give information to China, although that's what ultimately probably occurred. And so there were some quotes about how this wasn't necessarily a spy case and that really it becomes down to safeguarding sensitive and classified information. Despite there being no evidence in the NCIS, which is the Naval Criminal Investigation Squadron, similar to the FBI, there was no evidence he exchanged any information with anyone from China. The defense argued that the classified information is available on the internet. To me, that's a big wow, right? Like that kind of narrows it down a bit.
Definitely. There's more. So, where can we? Is there any way to find this guy?
Yeah, so we go into that in a little bit here. So now the government came back and said just because the information is available on the internet does not declassify it, which makes sense too, right? They have to be the ones who officially declassify it. But this admits that, okay, yes, the information that this guy leaked is apparently on the internet. If it's not the videos, what is it? Why are they coming down on him for life in prison? In 2014, he accidentally left 2 flight manifests that included search and rescue code names. Can you think of any other search and rescues that might have happened with flight manifests in 2014? I can't think of any that would be classified like this.
Ooh, that's a big clue, huh?
That's MH370 right there, right?
Yeah, no, that's an assumption. You're still an assumption.
Oh, it's definitely an assumption. We're building the case here, right? So I want to point out to you, I'm not a scientist. I'm not somebody who's trying to prove every aspect. I'm trying to build a criminal case here. And we're building evidence for it. Yep, now, in addition to this, this is definitely this is circumstantial, but we found I did a follow-up piece where we found an article, and in the article at the top where they have those pictures and little blurbs, there's a I think it's EP8 or a P8 Poseidon. Yeah, P8 Poseidon. And it talks about into searching for MH370 as well. For some reason at the top of this article about these charges this guy's in, which just is a very odd connection to put together there. So what ended up happening to this guy? He gets abused in prison while he's at his 646 days that he spent in pretrial confinement. He's getting abused. They're ruffling his cell. They're taking his information and journals that he's passing to his lawyer. They're putting him out in the cold, and all this stuff is documented out there. So he ends up taking a plea deal for 9 years. So he was going to get life. He ends up taking a plea deal. He says he took responsibility for the offenses he was actually guilty of, which is the 2 charges. That's the only thing that stuck. and everything else, he just agreed to work with the FBI and NCIS. He never spied on his country, served faithfully for 17 years. He was actually in charge of nuclear weapons at one point. So then he has this quote that I found that I feel physically ill when I think about the damage I could have caused from my actions. I'm exhausted and broken in spirit. The best thing I can do is serve as a cautionary tale for others. So if this guy is Agent 370, and I'm going to say this every single time, you are not a traitor. You are a hero, and we salute you, sir. Because what is he doing here? He's telling us the truth about MH370 and the technology that we see at play.
Let's see his picture. Do you got his picture on there? Oh, man.
Yeah. Seems like a good guy to me.
He looks like, that hero from Abu Ghraib. They had to put in protective custody and hide him for 2 years. Well,
he's gotten out of prison recently because they took 3 years off of his sentence. And this was, he would have been, the pretrial detainment would have counted towards his sentence as well. So even if he took the full 9 years, he would have just gotten out. But with 3 years shaved off, means he got out a few years ago. But imagine the psychological torture this guy had been under, right? We ignored these videos. If he is the guy that leaked this, that we ignored these videos for 9 years. No one thought they were real, right? That he went to prison for 7 years over these videos. I feel like he's not going to be inclined to talk about it.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it'd be hard. It might be a hard nut to crack. Who knows? If he's already done his time. I don't know if he's under NDA. He can't talk about anything else now.
Probably is because he has the plea deal, right? So there's almost no way unless he would go back to prison, I imagine, right? If it is him. Now, the thing about it, here's another little thing too, and this is also somewhat circumstantial, is that if this isn't the guy, like I've been talking about this guy now for over a month on podcasts. Every podcast I do, we talk about him pretty much. You'd think he'd reach out and be like, yo, you got the wrong guy here. I'm not related to this at all, man. You should, stop talking to me about it, right? He hasn't at all. Not once. Not his lawyer, nobody. So that too also makes me wonder, like, man, to me, I'm like 99% sure this is the guy. We're not going to find somebody else that fits the bill better than this guy. He's got the time frame for being on the right squadron. He has the right access to the secret weapon technology we would expect. He was flying the right plane. He has the signals intelligence. He got caught with the flight manifests. They argued that the information is available on the internet. What else can it be, right? I mean, it's tough. It's not like the Jack Tahara case where it's like, oh, here's all the Ukraine secrets, and then we're all on my Discord, right? Like, everybody knew everything about that. And that was huge. This guy, they tried to put in prison for life, and they still got him for 9 years. If you go look at what other people got, they did not get nearly this much time for mishandling of classified information. They get slaps on the wrist.
His name was Regicide Anon.
And I don't think he is Regicide Anon. I think he's the person leaking this to Regicide Anon. And that's why he had to explain to Regicide Anon that these videos are real, and why later on Regicide Anon argues with the other UFO uploaders that the videos are real, because nobody has a basis to understand these to be real until we've seen the Navy FLIR footage from 2017.
Yeah, let's play that.
You mean the second video or the FLIR footage from 2017?
I want the FLIR footage. Yeah, if you want to post that in the live chat.
Oh, I don't have. You mean the second one? I think I've already sent you the second link as well if you want to pull that one up. But I don't have the 2017 FLIR footage handy. I mean, we can go search for it if you want. But if you want to, I think we should look at the thermal, the MQ-1C Gray Eagle first, so we can see that there's another angle perfectly in sync, right? Your chat's mad that we're not paying enough attention to them, I think.
Yeah, man. You guys aren't the show, man. You guys can come on the show. I ask questions, and we're gonna do a Q&A at the end and stuff, and I'll try to bring some people on if it doesn't turn into a crap fest. But man, I'm just trying to hear out the information and I already say the things
let me see here.
Separating facts from assumption. That's a key part of all approaching any conspiracy is what are the assumptions and what are the
we'll dig into the conspiracy side too, because I want to explain why the official narratives are untrue as well. I think that's very important. Normally, I don't even like to start with the footage. I really like to explain why the official narratives are false. I'll go ahead and share my screen if you want here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. If you want to flip over to mine, I can't tell what's being shown.
I'll dig into this. I'm not going to do all the analysis. Well, people are like saying, "Oh, bring up the Mick West video so we can watch that and get
I've
your
got the debunks
response
ready
to
for
it."
that too. I've debunked that
So,
one like 7 different times. We've got the overlay that proves that it doesn't match, all kinds of stuff. So, okay. So here is the second video. Now in this video, you can see this is received June 5th, uploaded June 12th. So this is actually several weeks after the first footage, which again gives us more idea of what was going on here. Is that we ignored the first footage. The leaker probably thought we had absolute proof in the first footage. I mean, we're looking at coordinates that indicate the real location of MH370 around 1840 UTC. Doesn't work. So then they leak the second footage. And now we're looking at this colorized thermal from an MQ-1C Gray Eagle. We watched the plane go right underneath the smoke trails, the drone. This drone cannot catch up to this plane. This had to have intercepted it. We actually think we know where it was deployed from as well, which is one of the islands like Carb Nicobar, I think it is, has a base there.
not Diego Garcia.
It's too far away for Diego Garcia. Couldn't get there in time. It's,
What about the idea that they just used technology to take control of the plane and flew it, landed it somewhere like there, like Diego Garcia? That's what some people have said.
yeah, people say that, but and sure, if without these videos, I think a lot of people would still think that, right? But with these videos, we can help explain all of the evidence, all of it, every single piece. That's the amazing part about these videos. Now, when we're looking at the thermal, we see a lot more information here.
If they're real.
So in the thermal here, we can see that these orbs have these trails in front of them, right? They're not from behind them. So first of all, there's no basis to even recreate this. There's nothing to copy this from. And the question really remains, how would anyone even think to create this, right? This isn't like the video you just showed me where there's just these obvious, like superimposed, fake-looking planes just kind of flying over. We're now dealing with a situation where you have to build a particle stream. The fact that we have 2 videos means you have to build a 3D rendered environment because they're perfectly in sync with one another, which means you have to be able to build a 3D rendered environment that you can take 2 different camera angles from, which adds a huge level of complexity, which is why you don't see 2 different videos like the one you just showed me from 2 different angles, because now you're saying it's going to have to take weeks, months, maybe even years to produce. Now, when we look at this, even people who are into UFOlogy get confused by what we're seeing here, because this is the orbs. Sure, these orbs, potentially we've seen orbs in the zeitgeist, but not in 2014. With respect to this forward-facing particle engine that we see, and it kind of goes away when it starts to spin around the plane vertically here, they're being pulled along by that. Now the plane's gone there. So watch the part with see these trails again? People think these trails are coming from behind. They're actually coming from in front of the orbs. And I'll show another video in a minute that kind of conclusively shows that. This, we believe, is what we're seeing is superconductivity at play here. And you can see them getting pulled forward. The operator is manually controlling the video here. They're not automatically keeping track of it like we've seen in the 2007 leaks. They're not automatically tracking the plane. Seems like they know something's going to happen. They even zoom in. We can see this heat signature in the belly of the plane right near the landing gear here, where we think the smoke is coming out of. And then they zoom out at the last second. Now watch here. What's going to happen is these orbs are going to converge on the plane right before this zap happens. And then we're going to notice the zap is cold. So get ready for it. See them converging already right here? Boom. Now the plane's gone. The zap being cold is very important because that means it's not an exothermic event. It means what we're seeing is not an explosion. And it also means that this is not something that somebody would fake. Because if you're going to fake it, you're going to fake it to be an explosion white. No one even think to make it what looks like is a black hole, essentially. But it's not a black hole when we've dug into the science. Instead, it's being supercooled into a Bose-Einstein condensate. Now, you can look at how these orbs are converging. And I have another version that we can look at. Go ahead.
But this is thermal imaging, and you're saying what's the range on that FLIR camera? I don't think it can go to super cool. I mean, I don't think it goes below -30 Celsius, right?
So the way it works is this colorization is manual or custom inputted into the computers or the video software of this advanced electro IR camera. So we don't know the exact temperature settings on it, but we do know is it's maxing out the cold level there, which is why it's perfectly black.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So from that perspective,
that's your background. You got a good background, right?
Yep. So there we can see the plane's just instantly gone, right from there. And now there's nothing there anymore. And weirdly enough, they don't go looking around. They just zoom out and they're like, okay, yep, time to go get lunch. They kind of look around a little bit, but you'd expect them to be like having a panic attack, right? Yeah. Now let me switch and show some videos real quick because I think it'll help understand some of the aspects of this. So let me share this one real quick. Share screen, window. Where's my video? This one. Okay, so I want to show the media here as well. So,
but I don't know, man. It's all right. Let me just play that. All right, I'm gonna let you keep going.
yeah.
Yes,
So
but the thing is, though, you said a Bose-Einstein condensate. It's being
correct.
superconductive. So a superconductor isn't necessarily a Bose-Einstein condensate.
Yep. That's not what I mean, though. So what I'm talking about with superconductivity is I'm talking about these orbs that we're seeing here. And I think when we talk about the Bose-Einstein condensate is the amount of energy required to convert a 777, even if it's using some kind of electromagnetic shell around it, has got to be insanely high. So you need some type of energy source beyond probably what we know about. Now, if you take 3 superconductors that are spinning around, creating huge electromagnetic fields, and you jam them together like you would jam a couple magnets together, theoretically, it seems like you could amplify that power to some degree. Now, that's, again, theoretical. But I think that if we have room temperature superconductivity, we will be able to come up with new sources of power that we don't know about today, at least not in the public sphere. What I wanted to point out in this video is these trails. You can see very clearly they're in front of the orbs here. They're running on like train tracks. Also, when we were looking at in the satellite footage, you could see that they're actually, the center of mass is the plane when they're encircling the plane. It looks like a tracking system and a mapping system. So the other one I want to show is the zap. Let me pull that up real quick.
Yeah, I've seen a couple slowdowns.
So you see the zap here. This is the slowdown of the zap. And this is where you can see the gravitational lensing of the orbs in this frame right here. I also want to show you this. This is the frame right before that, where they're already starting to converge. Look at the plane, especially in this grayscaled version we created. Now watch the next frame. Look how cold it gets. There's like a shell around it that's cooling the plane. I mean, how is somebody faking this? Like, how much detail would you go into to even, this is, most people say when they look at this is the part that really convinces them.
What's the top versus the bottom?
This is just a grayscaled version of the bottom that we see here. And so you can see the same effect here where it's the tail is becoming blurred, and it's actually getting colder here in the next frame. You can actually see the heat signature of the engine, and then in the next frame, the heat signature of the engine's gone.
But how is it creating the black? The black's not an actual, like, this, not actual to a scale on a thermal scale, right? That's just the
yeah, this is just a grayscale, but this is, it kind of is, because this is the thermal down here, right? So the blue is going to be colder essentially here, but this isn't like the black that we saw from the zap. And so then we see the zap here.
What I'm saying on the thermal and the FLIR, you have like a scale where it goes from, the blue being the cool background, right, up to red hot being the hottest, and green being somewhere in the middle. And this top video is doesn't blackness, so that doesn't mean that it's like super cool. In fact, if it was super cool, we'd see that on the bottom one. Correct. And I don't even think you'd be able to see the spheres would either be dark blue, darker than the background, right? Not because they're a little bit higher in the background, which shows that they're a slightly higher temperature.
So you can see that even the spheres lose their temperature when they go into this next frame here. They actually start to bend, and then you can also see that the heat signatures disappear. You can see the heat looking at the bottom. You can see the heat signatures, and then the heat signatures are gone in the next frame.
Let's slow it down on the actual frames of the explosion or wormhole.
Yeah, moving them manually here. So then we go to the next frame here. And now in this one, you can actually see the tail of the plane. So why is it? I'm trying to see. Right here where can you see where my mouse is? I can't tell. Yeah. You can actually see this right here. People have been able to show that this actually matches the tail of the plane if the plane was getting sucked slightly backwards here. This little like blue spot right here, interestingly enough. So it seems like this in the one frame before the plane gets fully encompassed, that you can see the tail still sticking out. And then it's just gone in the next frame right here. Completely enclosed, nothing left.
I've never seen anything like this, man. It just it almost So
I want to show this as well, just for our debunker friends. Yeah. This effect on the left is not the same as the effect that we just watched. Okay, we just watched that effect several times. This is not the same. This is completely different. Now, what they've done is they've tried to match up a single frame of this. And all you have to do to debunk it for everybody listening is just ask how many pixels match. And the reason why no one will answer is because the pixels don't match. So that's very important. If you're trying to say that this effect must be the same, then the pixels must match 100%. The amount of painstaking effort it would take to change all the pixels, that's the reason why you use an effect, so that you don't have to painstakingly change all the pixels. This right here, this is not the same. This is not even close, guys. So, you know, this is one of the laziest debunks I've ever seen. And on top of it, even if somehow this did match,
and this is yeah, but this could have been generated, right? You could have generated something that looks something similar, you know, take, you know, program AI with a bunch of fireworks explosions or some stuff.
So again, comes from 2014. And the other part too is that, you know, our work is a complete original. So if we jump into it, I think that to help convince people, now that we've shown that VFX doesn't quite match, I want to show the list of requirements in order to fake the videos.
Yeah, that would be cool because you know, because they had some good fakes. I mean, the View 6 software did that UFO Haiti video back in 2007. You know, that I showed earlier. That was an impressive early fake.
A lot of it has
also,
to do with the time.
You know, the CIA had deep fake technology, right?
So let me ask you this though. So what we just saw in that video, let's say the government, let's play the PSYOP angle. The government made it.
I mean,
what is the government's purpose in making that?
You have the video right there. This is supposedly bin Laden in 2001 when he was graybeard, you know, 2 years before that. And then, you know, they released this older video with him. He's and it's clearly a deep fake. Lots of people have called that a deep fake. You know.
Okay.
So there's
my question though remains what? So looking at the video that we just saw, let's assume for a second the government made it. What's the narrative? You tell me. What's the government's narrative on that video?
If the government made that, yeah, because it's 4 days after this happened.
So the narrative is that the aliens took the plane, right? Orbs took the plane. Who's going to believe that if they release that? Nobody's going to believe that. If the government comes out and says, "Hey guys, aliens took the plane. Here's a video. We faked this video," and they don't say they faked it, of course, everybody's going to say the government's lying. The government's the one that's involved. They're the ones who took the plane. That's the reason why the PSYOP angle makes no sense with these videos. Part of the reason why I was so compelled to kind of push them and try to show their authenticity. There's no angle the government can play that the general populace is going to believe. The only thing that's going to happen is people are going to believe that the government is the one responsible. And that's part of the reason why they can't be faked. If you're going to fake it, you're not going to fake it and say that aliens took it. You're going to say that Russia took it or something, right? Because then people will believe that. You're not going to believe that aliens took your plane. So that to me is the biggest reason why the government did do it. But if you want to look through this list that we've got created here, we've got a pretty extensive list that makes it pretty hard to fake here. If you want to,
here's an early fake that was done with bin Laden singing "Poker Face" by Lady Gaga that someone made from 2011. You know, so like people were making fun of the fake bin Laden tapes that the CIA put out. You know, back. I remember this from back in like 2006 and 2008 and stuff. People were making fun of the, you know, that obviously fake confession tape of the bin Laden. This is the one where they have a comparison, right? So here's 2004 versus 2007, right? That's bin Laden on the left from 2004. And this is the one that the CIA put out in 2007 saying it was, you know, saying that basically bin Laden sitting there dyeing his hair in the cave in Afghanistan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, like I've never really been into conspiracy stuff before these videos for the most part. That's just the truth. Same with UAP stuff in general. Like,
well,
I was never really
letting you know. I'm
but
not,
sure, I'll take your word for it.
I'm not so. You know, the 370 thing stinks with the Freescale semiconductor scientists on board. That was the Rothschild's company. They're bought up by the Carlyle Group. Afterward, there's a lot of interesting connections there. In the conspiracy side that I would love to see people dig deeper into. Just letting people know that I have dug deep into the 9/11 stuff, and that is definitely was real, 100%. If people you know, want to watch my documentaries, I have a couple excellent documentaries that go deep into the 9/11 connections, the whole radar physics group that was in the Pentagon. A number of their scientists actually died on board Flight 77 when that crashed into the Pentagon, which is crazy. But it's true, and it has very odd similarities to MH370 with the fact that you have these scientists involved with these radar physics kind of technologies and stuff, and then they get killed aboard the planes. It's very suspicious and should be looked into. The CEO of this group, by the way, Systems Planning Corporation, was the comptroller of the Pentagon on 9/11, a guy named Dov Zakheim, and he was a member of the Project for the New American Century, and he actually wrote the line that said that they wanted to change the world over the next 100 years, but the process was going to be a long one, absent some catalyzing and catastrophic event like a new Pearl Harbor. And so they called for, so they needed a new Pearl Harbor. And then, of course, on 9/11, they got that. Of course, I think it was all provided by their own technologies, that they had secret technologies in play on board all those aircraft that were used on 9/11. And they were able to just hijack him and fly him into the towers, just like they did in that X-Files episode that aired, months before. The exact same plot. So that stuff I'm willing to entertain, and I think it's worth looking deeper into, and that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast to present all this evidence and
let's
get
keep going
into
through
this.
it.
Let's keep getting into it. Let's keep going.
What I want to do is go through what it would take to hoax the videos, and then after that, I'd like to talk about how the plane didn't crash into the South Indian Ocean, because I think that regardless of what you think about the videos, we can prove that the official narrative is a lie. Yeah. So if you let me share here real quick, I will show you.
I'll go back to you.
Okay, so this is a list that we helped put together. So the community helped as well, but most of it as well is stuff that we had already kind of concluded. So based on that first satellite video that we have, you have between 4 and 72 days to create it, unless the government created it ahead of time, right? And I think I explained why that doesn't make a lot of sense. This is an original work. There's nothing to copy this from. So going back to your deepfake scenarios, normally when you're taking deepfakes, you're taking a real video and you're taking a picture of somebody and you're putting it over the top of it. We don't have that capability here. This is a brand new original work. You have to know how to create the volumetric clouds that we saw. Those cumulus clouds are perfect. You'd have to know how to accurately animate the cameras, how these cumulus clouds form at low altitudes. These are not these high altitude clouds. How to accurately illuminate them from the zap. You'd have to know exactly what MH370 looks like. It's a perfect match to our videos. In fact, the thermal is a perfect overlay as well. You'd have to know the perfect turning radius of the 777 at the altitude while in descent, which we've been able to show that that's what the 777 is maxing out its turning capability here in some type of emergency landing scenario. You'd have to know where the plane was at the exact time and the Nicobar Islands there where the coordinates indicate. You'd have to know that you'd basically have to create a separate program to do the animation of the coordinate shifts, including animating them to change accurately when the perspective changes. And again, that changes 8 times throughout the video. And those coordinate shifts are perfect, like down to like 8 decimals. You'd have to know what the weather looks like, because we went and looked at the weather satellite and showed that there are low altitude clouds in the area at the same time. You'd have to know how to accurately create the smoke. We used to think it might be exhaust. We've kind of concluded now that it's smoke trailing from the plane. And in addition to that, how the orbs accurately get distorted while they go through that smoke through the trail of the plane when they're circling around it. You'd have to know what the thermal looks like to a level that would fool the experts. I had a source reach out to me and say that their buddy works at General Atomics. They showed them the video and they said that looks just like an MQ-1C Gray Eagle footage. You'd have to have better visual effects skills than Top Gun Maverick artists, who they weighed in right here on Reddit, and said that the person that did this front ran all the work that they did by 4 years. That was in 2022. They did a better job than them as well. One of the biggest advantages, they had to cheat the speed of the jets through scale and different cinematic effects. The fact that they did it with 2 different cameras is extreme accuracy and speed means that they had to scale it down to the real world speed. So this is extremely difficult if they had faked this. Now, going back up to where we were at, we also got a quote from a Marvel VFX lead who also claimed it would take at least 6 months to be able to pull the information together and put it together with today's technology. Again, at most, we have 72 days.
4 days.
You'd have to have knowledge of military classified systems that were completely unknown to the public. Maybe if you were in the military, you might know what some of this stuff looked like at the time. But from the public perspective, we still don't have any idea about satellite footage generally. Like, this is it. You'd have to know that the military is using a Citrix environment, which, okay, it's not really that much of a stretch. But you'd have to, for some reason, build the frame rate difference into your hoax video where the mouse is working at the Citrix frame rate session and the background's working at that 6 frames per second. You'd have to know this specialized type of mouse that they're using, which we think is like a soft view, I think it's called, where it's kind of like got like a press and click option like this, because the acceleration is different when they move the perspective than when the mouse moves across the screen. You'd have to know what the U.S. has satellites they have in the area and what their payload is, because we think that we're seeing this 3D stereoscopic effect here from the Regicide Anon original version. This is 2 cameras, 2 different angles. We've shown that it's a parallax effect. You'd have to know what the false color IR looks like. So again, there's no shadows. When the zap happens in the satellite, it's white, which is another indication that what we're seeing here is a false color, not a real color, because the thermal shows it being black as well. In addition, the IR, the reason why these clouds are lighter at the top is because clouds have more infrared radiation at the top of them. So this is all perfectly accurate to what an IR camera would look like. Again, how to animate those orbs and that forward-facing particle engine, which there's no basis for that anywhere, not even in UFOlogy. I mean, people could theorize, but as far as I know, I've never seen a video that has this forward-facing lines coming in front of it with the orbs tracking along them. You have to know what that MQ-1C Gray Eagle looks like, what the payload is, where that payload is located. Going back to the visual effect thing, that debunk uses a 2D low-quality 90s visual effect. Now, we have to have a 3D rendered environment, which means you would not be using a 2D visual effect in your 3D rendered environment. On top of that, the one that we were looking at is the remastered version from 2015 that post-dates our videos.
See,
if you go look at the old 90s version, it's much more pixelated. No one would ever think that it could be in our videos.
I wish I had an expert on here to you know, because I'm not an expert. I don't know if any of this stuff is that you're saying. I can't debunk it or you know, speak for it or
That's
against it. You know what I mean? So all I'm going to say is a Word Von Braun quote is, "One good test is worth a thousand expert opinions." So if I can see someone make me a video that does all these things, then you know, then all those opinions you just threw at us will go out the window. But I'd
If
have
somebody
to see.
could do it, they already would have done it. I promise you that. But you
I
know
have
what?
to
If they
see
do,
it.
I
Yeah.
would love to see them try. The last thing you'd have to know as
Yeah.
well is that we would never find the plane, not even 9.5 years later. Otherwise, this whole hoax would break down. Somehow this hoax is hung up
Yeah.
for 9.5 years. We've never
Where
found the
did the
plane.
plane go? There's nothing found. Not a shred of this plane. Not
Well,
a
we
black
found some
box.
debris, and that's the interesting part, but we didn't find the key stuff that we need, right? We didn't find a plane. Like the amount of tiny amounts of debris they found is less than 1% of this plane. Like they did not find what we needed, right? We need to find a black box. We need to find
Yeah.
bodies. We need to find luggage everywhere. So let's dig into that. Why did this plane not crash into the South Indian Ocean? Let's just go ahead and debunk the hell out of the fake narrative right now.
And let's
So-
track this plane, because I remember you had a map, and
Yeah, I'll
it
pull that up
shows-
too if you want.
Let's kind of go over the.
Well, first, let me do the debunk of that, and then I'll pull up the flight path, and we can talk a little bit about that. I think it'll be naturally flow
the
into it.
timeline would be good to just.
So
of
people
events,
claim
so
that
we
this
can get
plane
this.
crashed into the South Indian Ocean in the morning of March 8th, that they ran out of gas. Now, here's the main problem.
In the
No debris
Indian
field
Ocean.
in the South Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
No debris field was found. This is an active shipping route. There was actually no debris field found anywhere. This is a 777 crashing into the ocean that didn't leave a debris field. A lot of people realized that, you know, people in the Netflix documentary, that that's not possible. And that's what they came up with, these fake narratives. And what you just pointed out as well. So the most expensive search in history did not find a single piece. The official search did not find one piece of the plane, not a single piece. There was all these systems that would have heard it crash into the ocean. There was 2 hydrophone systems, one in Diego Garcia, one in Western Australia. Both of them would have heard the acoustic sound of a 777 crashing in the ocean. They did not. There was also the SOSUS system, which is the system that heard the Titan sub pop. The Navy lied about that for 5 days while everyone was thinking, how much oxygen do these people have left in the bottom of the ocean, right? They knew right away that it popped, and they said nothing about it.
Yeah.
That system would have heard this plane crash as well. It was declassified, I believe, in 2011, maybe 2012, before this even happened.
Is
So
that is that so far? Is that what it's called? SOFAR?
SOSUS, SOSUS. You can look it up. I was looking it up yesterday.
SOS.
It's got an official name. Yeah. So in addition to that, and there was 2 radar systems that would have also seen it. The Indonesia's radar system would have seen it fly out there. Australia has this Jorn system, radar system that would have seen it. None of these systems caught it. In addition to that, 19 families of the victims. Yeah, so 19 families of the victims signed a statement saying they could call the cell phones of the victims for up to 4 days after the event. No, if you can say, okay, maybe 1 or 2 phones might be ringing one time, but 19 phones ringing for 4 days, including one proven on live national television. People have tried to argue that this is possible. I say no way. There's no cell phone service out in the Indian Ocean. If your phone is underwater for like more than a few feet, it's not going to get service. In the salt water, it's going to die almost instantly. It's an active shipping route. Nobody saw this plane, even though they claim it crashed at 8 a.m. on an active shipping route with no debris field and no witnesses. So to me, that conclusively rules that part out. Now I'll pull up the flight path for you guys, but this flight path is only until, interestingly enough, we believe that our videos happened at the exact same location where they say this plane turned into the South Indian Ocean at the exact time as well. And yes, SOSUS system should be able to detect plane crashes. If it can detect a tiny sub popping near the Titanic, it can absolutely detect a 777 crashing into the water. The Diego Garcia hydrophone system, people looked through the data as well and could not find any conclusive data that shows a plane crashing into the ocean.
Yeah, huh? 4 days, and they proved that on national television, calling their phones. Man, how does your phone stay on for 9 days? And
underwater in the middle of the ocean?
Or in Diego Garcia, like there's no is there reception in Diego Garcia? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's the big question. I mean, who knows? Like, if let's say you got to Diego Garcia and they take all your phones, like, I don't know, are they going to?
Was there in 2014?
Hard to say. So let me share this because I've got a nice little flight path here that's pretty legit, and I'll kind of run through to what we think happened here while we show this, if you don't mind. So if you want to pull this up, it's very similar to the image you just showed, but it's graphics, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah, guys, be careful about the debunks, man, and just do your research into this. That's what we're doing, and I'm not taking anybody's word for it, whether whether it's Ashton or whether it's the debunkers. So I'm just here to present information and let you guys decide. So not here, we do some analysis, and if we find something, if I haven't found a smoking gun so far where I'm like, aha, Ashton's lying. But it's definitely sounds interesting. It could be complete disinformation. I still haven't come up with a plausible theory for.
I guarantee you, I'm not giving you disinformation, but you're free to believe what you want, of course, sir.
I always have to everything. Yeah, that's how we approach everything, man. So
you gotta be skeptical. So go ahead and share if you let me share my thing here.
Yeah, you got the map right here. Great.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. So this map here. So this plane is taking off at Kuala Lumpur. It actually leaves the ground at 1640 UTC. We like to talk about in UTC terms so we can keep everything straight here, because otherwise we're dealing with time zone changes and stuff like that. So 1642 UTC, plane is flying northeast to Kuala Lumpur. It gets here to 1721. This is where the plane goes dark, like 60 seconds after the pilot calmly says, "Good night, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Now, we found a ton of witnesses. We found a witness over here, Mike McKay. He's on an oil rig. He sees this plane on fire at 1720 UTC. This is the first indication we have of a lithium-ion battery fire. There's 221 kilograms, almost 500 pounds of lithium-ion batteries on this plane. And they're extremely dangerous.
Everyone just bought the Samsung 7, and they were just,
So there's a ton of batteries. That actually FAA changed the rules to no longer allow lithium-ion batteries in the cargo of passenger planes the next year, because they found out these were so dangerous. There's also 9 people that reported on the coastline here that they heard a loud bang or loud noise as well at the exact same time, which would be consistent with the explosion of these lithium-ion batteries. Now, the guy who's on the oil rig here says he didn't see the plane crash. He just saw it on fire. His sighting was somewhat misreported. And now the plane turns around. Where does it turn around to? It goes to Penang Langkawi International Airport. If you go look up MH370 wired, you're going to find an article that argues for electrical fire, and that everything the plane does here is consistent with a fire scenario. Is it going to move? Oh, there it goes. Okay. And so right about here, 10 minutes after this, there are fishermen right off the coast of Thailand and Malaysia here. like 6 of them, I want to say. 2 of them have their names on the record. They see the plane flying very low. Now, the reason why the plane would fly low is that the plane actually did get depressurized. But if you're trying to kill all the passengers with depressurization, you're going to stay very high altitude. If you're trying to save all the passengers and allow them to breathe, you need to fly at a low altitude, under 10,000 feet. That's consistent with what the fishermen saw here. Is a depressurization event where the pilot's not trying to kill them, they're trying to save them. And they're going to the nearest airport where they can potentially land safely. That's going to have, emergency people available to help them out. Now they get to Penang, and again, this is only about 30 minutes later, and now they're at Penang, and they don't land. The co-pilot of the cell phone pings the phone tower close to Penang. Now this is the part where we have to wonder, why would the plane not land? If you look at the pilot book, you're supposed to, if your landing gear is damaged, which we think it must have been from the fire, then you're supposed to try to land on your belly. The problem with that is this plane has another 6 hours of fuel in it. If you try to land this plane with a bunch of fuel in it, kaboom, this thing's going to blow up. Now, if you try to dump the fuel, the problem with that is this plane is on fire. So you start dumping fuel at a low altitude with your plane on fire, doesn't seem like a good idea either. The next thing the book says to do is you're supposed to try to land in the water. So what does our plane do? And I actually forgot as well, is at the same time these fishermen saw the boat, there was a communication that we found from another 777 that claims that they heard the pilot or the co-pilot with a bunch of static, which would also be consistent with that maybe the communications weren't really out, because it's hard to explain how the communications also go out as well. So theoretically, what if they communicated with the government? Government says rendezvous point, Nicobar Islands. We've got assets over here on these islands that can come intercept. MQ-1C Gray Eagle is going to come intercept. And we have these satellites that are going to be able to get to it. So interestingly enough, if you look at from the day after, the time that they claim they lost tracking is not 1822 UTC here. It's actually 1840 UTC over here. You can go look that up yourself right now. All of the initial reports said 1840 UTC, which is the time that our witness is seeing it within a few minutes right here. They changed it weeks later, after they finally released the radar data, to claim that it was at 1822 UTC, presumably because they have to throw people off the scent from the official narrative. The only reason why you're not releasing that data right away and the ping data right away from the satellite is because you got to develop a cover story. You got to develop something that's convincing. Otherwise, people are going to be on to you, and they're going to figure out, well, if this plane crashed over here, where's the debris field? What happened to it? And all of this lines up to, why are you even covering up a fire scenario, right? And the answer is because this plane can't last for 8 hours if it's on fire. It's actually a miracle that it lasts for 1 hour and 20 minutes, although I did get corroboration that it could last that long.
So quick question
Yeah,
about
jump
the
on it.
audience. When they dump the fuel, is there like a valve or something in the wings that opens up? Where does it dump from?
I'm not 100% sure. It looks like from videos I've seen that it's dumping from like near the wings, so to speak. But if there is fire, it's not going to be safe. What I've seen is people have poured this fuel all over people on the ground in other scenarios, which, it's pretty volatile when they dump this fuel. So I think the risk would be that if it's hot enough, there's fire there, any part of it's going to ignite, and then kaboom, the whole plane's going to blow up. But it's hypothetical. What we do know for a fact is the plane did not land at Penang. So it would have had to have a good reason not to land there. Now it gets over here, and our witness, there's a witness, Catherine T. She's on a boat going to Phuket over here. And she sees this glowing orange plane. And it's coming from the same direction of travel. They've been able to recreate that using her automatic GPS coordinates. Even though the boat starts to just go off course while she's watching and no one's at the helm. So she watches it for about 5 minutes. She stops watching it when the boat gets goes past her boat from I'm going to say this wrong, but behind the boat pretty much down to the south. And then she goes inside and puts the kettle on and theoretically misses our main event by just probably a minute or two. But she sees this glowing orange plane. The weird part about this glowing orange plane is that it doesn't seem like the orbs could be causing it. We looked into it a lot. Theoretically, we thought, okay, maybe they were. But the problem is these orbs are coming in at such a high rate of speed that this plane's not outrunning the orbs. The orbs are catching up to the plane right away. So the big break was that we found that this bromine gas in the halon fire extinguishing the chemical reaction that happens, I think maybe when you pour water on it or what have you, it releases this bromine gas, which is orange, very distinctive orange. So the idea here would be that would, after they've been fighting this fire for over an hour, this plane is filled with this orange gas. And that's why Catherine T sees this plane with this, not like this kind of fuzziness kind of around it. And I had a personal interview with her, and she said it was like just a little bit kind of coming from and around the plane a little bit. And if you look at pictures of what she says with the closest recreation of it and compare it to a halogen lamp, they look identical. And halogen lamp or bromine is a halogen. So that was the big break in what we had seen happen here. And that explained all the witnesses, all these people that had seen it. They're all explaining the same event, a lithium ion battery fire. And so this is why you have to deploy the technology. This plane is doomed. If this plane lands in the ocean, it's not like landing in the Hudson River. This plane is going to break apart. And if the plane breaks apart in the ocean, it's middle of the night. It's essentially, depending on what time zone you're looking at, 2:40 in the morning. Catherine T says it was pitch black. We checked the moon phase. The moon was down. The sun is down. Most of the passengers can't swim, probably, due to the fact that they're Chinese nationals, who many of them on the mainland don't learn how to swim. So this plane was doomed. It was going to crash, and probably everybody was going to die. So that brings in the scenario of, okay, you deploy this technology. And because you deploy the technology, you got to cover it up. You can't let people know the truth about it. So we've got to discredit all these witnesses. We've got to delay the radar data because all the official reports at 1840, which is the same time Catherine T told me. Weirdly, what she told me, I asked her, what time do you think this happened? I'd have to check, but I think it was 1840 UTC. And then I asked her, well, what about your experts that they talked to? She said, oh yeah, I felt like they were trying to pressure me to change the time, which was really weird. And then I asked her, had her look at the thermal we were looking at. And I said, does this look like the plane you saw? And I knew she hadn't followed along because the first thing she said was, well, it's not green. And I realized she didn't realize we were looking at thermal footage at all. So she was very unfamiliar with the situation. So then I say, okay, well, what about the shape of it? Oh, the shape is the same, she said. So to me, this is very strong corroboration, but we also found an intercepted communication at this time at 2:43 a.m., which if you convert that to Malaysia local time is 18:43 a.m., where supposedly China intercepted a communication from the Thai embassy that claimed to have been from MH370 that said the plane was disintegrating and then attempting an emergency landing. This is all consistent with everything we've been reporting on just now. This plane was on fire. It was quote unquote disintegrating. Keep in mind that's being converted or translated from Chinese. Actually, somebody in my family knows Mandarin, so I'm actually going to have them look at the characters and tell me if like what's the English, like what does it really mean? You know, when you talk about disintegrating, could it be like on fire, right? But this is consistent with this. She also reported the plane was low when she first saw it. When she sees it where we're seeing it kind of over here. And as it gets around, it's descending, she says. Definitely decreased altitude significantly. She was actually afraid that it might hit the water and capsize the boat. So really interesting sighting that corroborates this. This is also right here where this boat is. This is the location where they claim this plane just went south in the South Indian Ocean. And then that was that for another 6 hours for some reason, right? So this is what really debunks this official narrative and explains, you know, because of the free-scale semiconductors that you just mentioned, gives us that motive on why you would do this, right? And you can kind of, again, there's so much mystery. Like, did this fire happen naturally, or was there some type of espionage at play? And then from over here on our other side, where this videos happens, is are they preventing these people from going to China? Are they stealing them? Are they trying to save their lives? You know, I know a lot of people have different theories. And again, I encourage everybody to believe whatever they want. I just want to present the evidence out there and be honest about what my opinion is. I don't believe that the military is inherently evil because it's just made up of individuals. I think they can do evil things for sure. But I think that what they're trying to do is
they have objectives and goals in hand. So the military just takes directions from the intelligence agencies, and the intelligence agencies work for the banks and they work for the big money. Their job, number one job, is to protect infrastructure, the infrastructure of what the insurance companies insure, the military industrial complex, all that stuff. So it's not about whether they're not doing things necessarily from we view it as evil because we don't really understand it, but it's basically like an AI making machine-like decisions for how to maintain and expand its sphere of influence and power. I guess they're not really thinking about it in terms of good or evil. In fact, they warn you, when you go to CIA training school, they give you a warning before you actually go and learn the dark arts. It's called. You'll never, they say, you can turn back now, because once you go into this training, you're never going to look at humanity the same again, ever. And it really warps and distorts your humanity in the way that you look at human beings and people.
So a couple things people are asking in the chat. So yeah, Catherine T was in a fight with her husband, and so she wasn't in a good mood. People ask, like, why did she go in and put the kettle on when she thought the plane might be crashed? She didn't know what she was looking at. I asked her about did she check the SOS? She said the radio wasn't on either. She didn't even think to check it. So just keeping her state of mind, she might have been thought she was hallucinating at the time, right? I mean, imagine seeing an orange glowing plane with no navigation lights. So she reported this when she finally got on land. And that's why all of her sighting has been recorded back from 2014. And she's got one of the most detailed sightings ever. You can read about the witness and the witness part 2, which is called, I think I called it Aquitas, which is just justice. And you can read for yourself, guys. But I've talked to her personally. I find her very highly credible. She's a rational and logical person. I think the fact that she was so disinterested in the videos in general actually adds more credibility. Is that she's not somebody who's out there trying to seek the woo. She was somebody that's just telling it how it is with her. She went and put the kettle on. She comes back out. There's no more plane anymore. So that's really interesting to me. But instead, what she said she saw was this halo, orange halo afterwards when she came back out. So to me, I find her sighting very credible. Everybody agrees that she was there at the right time underneath the flight path of the plane. I don't know why people would think she didn't see it, and I think it's weird to me that these experts didn't figure out that this is a fire, because from that, if we were able to figure out this glowing orange situation is related to the halon gas, how did these experts not figure that out? All the witnesses corroborate the same event. But that's a good question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all up in the air what happened in this plane until someone finds a black box, or I just wish there was something more concrete.
Yeah. What's the thing about it, right? Is that it's not 2015 anymore, right? It's 2023. Yeah. Right. They've searched everywhere, above and below water, with these submarines. They've mapped like a huge amount of the ocean from this search.
Yeah, look at this.
And they didn't find anything. Like, look at that search.
It's like bigger,
and that's just along the 7th arc. They also
that's an area bigger than the continent, almost like half of Australia. It's the size.
And again, there would have been a debris field visible from space for days. There would have been bodies, parts, luggage, all this stuff floats, right? And this is on an active shipping route. There's boats going by here all the time. There's just no way that anybody didn't see anything.
Yeah, that's why, I remember the theory that came out just a few months ago and stuff. It became popular again that the plane had just been landed at Diego Garcia, and whatnot. And then
yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah. There's a whole. What have you looked into as far as that goes?
Well, interesting enough, there was a fire suppression device from a B-77 that washed up in the Maldives on let me think, about 6 weeks later, I want to say. And it's a weird looking device. It almost looks like a bomb. And you look at it, it's a perfect match to these fire suppression devices they had on this plane. And it even has a number on it. The Maldives was intentionally excluded from the search, as in, sorry, you're not involved, which is weird because they're pretty damn close to this situation. There was even a sighting on one of the smaller islands right next to Diego Garcia, 50 miles away. Early in the morning, they see the plane with a red and white stripe. And, that's a very distinctive stripe on Malaysian Airlines as well. Flying very low. Again, consistent with this idea that you've got a depressurized plane. The hardest part about that is the time. 1840 UTC is 2:43 a.m. local time. And then if these people are seen at 6 in the morning, how is this plane there 4 hours later? The distance seems to match up, but it's hard to imagine this plane survived, right? But if we have the zap happen, and if the zap is teleportation, then you can teleport to the future, or you can be held in superposition, or they can teleport and then land somewhere and then, take off again. It opens the door. The best evidence for it getting to Diego Garcia is the Philip Wood EXIF data picture, which was posted on 4chan about a week after the event, maybe 2 weeks after the event.
Sorry, what was that? Philip Wood?
Yeah, American passenger Philip Wood. And I can post a link if you want to take a look at it. It's just a black picture. But the EXIF data on this picture points to Diego Garcia. And so the thing about that is, okay, and he claimed to have been captured and held prisoner and being drugged in Diego Garcia. And so that there is a black site in Diego Garcia. It's basically been shown from the Black Vault Freedom of Information Act requests. They used to transport prisoners through there theoretically. The hardest part to believe with the picture is like, why are you posting it? Oh, I mean, the part about posting on 4chan, I think is easy to explain.
Oh God,
you're not posting on Reddit or Twitter because it's going to get deleted.
Could you imagine, like, Ashton, like, you're talking about this stuff on the internet, and tomorrow the CIA comes and black bags you, and you wake up on an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
That's what I was telling my parents. Like, if I ever disappear, come find. That's gonna be the name of my book.
That's where you're gonna be, right?
My book's gonna be called "Find Me at Diego Garcia." That's
come look for me here on the CIA black site. They have prison barges too, I guess too, like they just sail around.
I'll send you
like
the link in our private chat
ones
here
that look like shipping container ships.
Mm-hmm.
They're really a secret CIA prison that looks like a container ship and stuff. I've heard this some crazy.
This base, the stuff I'm hearing behind the scenes of this base is magnitudes more secret than Area 51. And important to the government, and not just about non-human intelligence, but like,
they
just in general stuff they're doing. 20% of Space Force is at this base. 20%. Space Force has about 8,500 people. 1,700 of them are stationed at this base, in addition to 1,500 civilians. The civilians at this base are not allowed to talk to anybody for the duration while they're there. Like 2-year stint, you can't talk to your family, and that's why they drink all the time there. And apparently that's the number one pastime, is just getting drunk and partying, because you can't talk to anybody else who's outside the base, because that's how secret they keep this base. I found a bunch of contracts from Black Construction, Lockheed Martin, tens of millions that add up to hundreds of millions of dollars. They actually have put billions of dollars into this base. If you go look on Google Earth Pro from 2003 to 2014, even to now, almost nothing on the surface changes, despite all this construction happening. And if you go look at what you're just looking at right there with that runway, especially if you go look at images from before 2014, there's tons of huge planes on the runway. After 2014, the planes are just gone.
You're going to have to do it. I don't think I have Pro Viewer.
No, I think I can pull it up.
Earth Viewer.
You want to look at it together? Yeah. I've never actually done it on a podcast with anybody.
Well, this is what we do on here, man. So one of my favorite things to do is look up Google Earth.
I don't want our connection to get disrupted suddenly.
Yes, that's how we know we're on to some good stuff.
So people tell me that we should avoid talking about this base, is what people have been telling me, but I'm not afraid of it.
That's why I'm talking about it.
How do I change the times on these? I'm not very good at Google Earth. Let me share again.
And we're almost at an hour and a half here, and a little bit. You mind? Cool. Would you like to open it up, or no?
No, we can do that if you want. I think we've hit a lot of the key points. I don't know if we did everything, but quite a bit. We even talked about Edward Lucy Lynn a little bit. Does anyone know how you change the dates? One of these buttons changes the dates. Oh, here we go. Historical imagery. Okay, guys, we're gonna do this together. This is gonna be fun. Okay, so let's go back to all the way like 2003. I mean, this is where you can kind of see some of the older satellite imagery. Let's see one where there's not a lot of clouds, like this one. So looking at this base here, we see these are apparently radar dishes, potentially. These circle things here. These might be radar dishes, we believe. Now, you can already see some of these planes already on this runway here, right? And I wonder if these aren't like elevators. There's got to be some elevator somewhere that goes underground.
Let's see.
Now, down here, look at all these planes. This runway is filled with planes. And this is 2003. So let's move it forward. Let's go to 2014, all the planes are gone. No more planes. Is it picture day, or how did they figure out?
Maybe they on them. They teleported them all with wormholes.
I think they just bring them underground.
Sorry to interrupt. I have to bring up that in 2003, Diego Garcia was the main launching point for the Iraq invasion, and that's why there was the huge military buildup there.
Interesting enough, they're still there though in 2006, but yeah, maybe, right? So in 2006, I mean, look, we got all the planes here, all these planes chilling on the runway. And just interesting enough, so we go forward here, and look what we just looked around, right? Now let's go to like 2020. Everything's still exactly the same on the surface. There's no differences anywhere on the surface here. All exactly the same. This right here, this harbor, is very interesting. So there's one, I think it's like 2006. Let me find it. Look at this. Why is this weird? What is this? What is that? Is that just a weird artifact? I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
But
it looks
there's
like
arguments that they have some kind of underwater submarine docking station for this place.
Yeah, it might be. Well, it's definitely what's called dredging.
Yeah. So there's a lot of contracts I found for dredging as well.
Yeah,
tens of millions for black construction.
They'll dig tons of. So they basically remove the coral reef and then dig it out so that big ships can get in there to harbor. So there's a little makeshift harbor that they made
over
there.
here too. You see the same thing again. Like, look at this. This is weird looking. I don't know if that's just an artifact or what, but this yacht club here. If you go look at the heat maps, this must be the most active yacht club in the whole world, because there's a huge heat signature next to this yacht club right here. And the fact that they have a yacht club in general is kind of bizarre, but sure.
Well, I mean, if you're sailing on yacht, some people sail around the world. It would be a good stop, maybe to.
Yeah. So the history of this base.
So this right here, I just want to point out.
Go ahead.
This is a tank farm. Okay, so these are petroleum storage tanks, and you can see that this is dug out so that if one of these break or rupture, it can capture it all in this area. So yeah, this is a tank farm. These are all the pipes that go into the tanks to fill and drain them. So basically, oil container ships would basically park here off port, and then they hook up to a line where they dump they basically bring a container full of petrol and load it out into these tanks.
Seems like a good place to hide some very advanced radars, though, as well. This base is supposedly supposed to have radar capability. They can track up to 3,000 miles away, which would be able to track Malaysian Airlines from start to finish.
So we'll probably be able to find the radar arrays.
Sorry, it also has one of NASA's shuttle emergency landing.
Yeah, because that's how long that runway is right there. Like, it's long enough that you can land a space shuttle on it. This is one. That's a good point. Yeah, and they moved all of the indigenous people off this island. It was a big, huge human rights scandal. They killed all their pets, like, grotesquely, and even now it's a big human rights scandal.
2.5 miles. That's not bad. The one at Groom Lake is 9 at Area 51.
Yeah. And yeah, so I guess it's funny because the Malaysian people have been trolling this base. There's a bunch of stuff in like waypoints that are in Malay all over. I think, or Bahasa, I believe they speak. Or I could be wrong on that, but yeah, there's all these waypoints all over. Like if you go look at the official Google Earth, all over the place, and apparently there's like pictures of the plane that they've put in there as well. So a lot of people speculate that this is the place to go. Now, I don't have any hard evidence for it, but if I'm a gambling man, I'm putting it all on this base. That's just my opinion. But
and like you said, there was that. Sorry to interrupt, but you said there was. Fine. What's the guy's name? That his phone. He took a picture when he landed there, right? That American.
Philip Wood. But he was, he apparently hid the phone up his butt. Was able to take a black picture. The EXIF data picture points to this base here. Actually, it points to kind of where there's a kind of residential area just to the east of where we were looking at that runway. That's where it points to, apparently.
This might be a radar setup here on the south corner of the base here. I'm not sure what this thing is, but this looks like a phased array with the little 6 radar towers arranged in an interesting pattern.
Real quick, I want to address the question in the chat about some debris that was found. So first of all, I want to point out that only one piece was connected with a serial number, the flaperon, and they actually did not use a unique serial number. If you go look it up, you'll realize the unique serial plate was actually missing from the flaperon. You can Google that and figure that out. In addition, no debris was found by the official search at all. Not any. It was all found by 10 pieces were found by Blaine Gibson, who is this guy that has been kind of going coast to coast searching for parts of the debris. The debris that is found is consistent with the fire scenario and teleportation scenarios. In fact, some of the debris had burn marks on it. The debris found later was not consistent with barnacle growth for the amount of time that it was in the water as well. And lastly, there was a 9M-MRK that was purchased and scrapped in 2013 in October, which is about 6 months before this event. That's the exact same model as MH370. So there's some evidence that the
covered their tracks, man. They disappeared another identical plane so that they could throw some debris out there to say, hey, we found pieces of it.
And that plane was scrapped way too early, like more than like a decade too early. It still had a ton of flight left in it, which is very unusual. And the company that bought it, GA Telesis, has been linked to the military. In fact, it was started by a veteran.
GA Telesis?
Yeah. It was started by a 34-year-old military veteran that all of a sudden now is in charge of a multi-billion-dollar company that buys planes. Now, I don't really want to go too much into this because this is the part where you start to get disappeared, right? So
no, this is what I want you to do, man. I want to
want to just say I have the utmost respect for the military. I think I've been very kind to them throughout this in general.
Yeah, no, the military's not bad.
So please, be good.
I say the military aren't the bad guys, man. They're just taking orders, all right? And it sucks because they have to take orders from people like Joe Biden. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of politics in general anymore. I just think that it's all a matter. It's like a game. The people that you put in there, they're temporary employees, right?
Puppets,
you get put in,
puppets, man. I think they're all controlled.
You said it.
They're all. Yeah, I don't.
It was interesting because just on that line, like people get into the office and they want to disclose UAPs, whatever, and then they get in the office and their whole personality changes. All of a sudden, they're quiet about it. They're coy about it. Happened to Obama. Happened to Trump. I mean, Biden was already, whatever, but you get the point. So yeah, this company, all of a sudden, this huge company is now buying planes and it's buying this plane just 6 months beforehand. That's a perfect copy of MH370. So yeah, sure. I mean, there's plenty of arguments for why the tiny amount of the debris that was found that wasn't found by the official search is consistent with the event that we've put forward. Yeah, what changes in lithium-ion batteries? So in 2015, they stopped allowing them in passenger planes, in the cargo of passenger planes. And even now, if you go look up FAA lithium-ion batteries, you will find that these events, even despite the fact they're not allowed in cargo bays anymore, once per week is how often lithium-ion battery fires are happening on commercial airplanes.
I did a search. I found one, just Alaskan Airlines Flight 751. There was an article about, one of these events. So you can find them. They're more than common. So, but it's curious that I've never heard the idea that there was a lithium battery fire on board that plane. And
yeah, I think we're the first people to break that, honestly. Like nobody, there was this idea of a fire, but nobody had brought up, hey, look at all these fire scenarios that happened. Like if you Google how we found all these examples from 2010 to 2014, these were very dangerous events.
Was there a bunch of these batteries on board the plane?
221 kilograms. And they put the batteries together the same day. They missed 2 security screenings as well. So these batteries.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Because on Rex's show the other day, you were saying that they didn't even screen those batteries before putting them into
they apparently did a brief physical inspection of them. But if you look at how the ATSB report has them, it looks like the most dangerous thing I've ever seen in my life. They look like improvised explosive devices, and they just stack them in these whatchamacallit, cardboard boxes. It's like, and it's 30 degrees centigrade that night. It's almost 100 degrees. These batteries are unstable at 200 degrees. It's not unreasonable for me to think that they could have heated up in this cargo bay to the point, where, especially if they had defects in them, to the point where they would explode. I mean, go look at videos of these lithium-ion battery explosions. They are scary, man. Like real scary. And the ones especially where they're trying to put them out and they just keep coming back up. It's like you can't put these out with the fire extinguishers. That's why it's amazing that they would even lasted an hour. But people have told me that because these cargo bays are built to withstand them, that they could have survived for like over an hour if they were actively like trying to fight the fire.
Yeah, there's some crazy videos if you guys want to watch of lithium battery fires, but I won't show them. There's people's cars burning and stuff.
They're pretty wild. one of the scooter blowing up really was like, holy
yeah, that's
crap.
why I had, that's the reason, number one reason. I'm glad I got you
Man.
when I did, because you're all booked up now. You're going on a ton of podcasts lately, crushing it out there. It's just a bit too much like 9/11, some of the coincidences here, which, you know, that's why I wanted to look deeper into it. And,
sure. I'm glad you had me on, by the way. I mean, it's nice talking to you guys, and I'm not trying to make anyone believe what I believe. I just want to get the evidence out there because I just think the evidence is so compelling that, you know, I think it'll turn a lot of people, especially people that are really skeptics.
So we got a couple new people that tuned out and are just tuning in. So why don't you let's do a recap. Let's just nail the best evidence that we found, and we'll go through the points one by one and hit them. I thought that the first thing you mentioned, where you have that video posted from the archive.org video. I don't remember where that one went.
Yeah, from 2014. And a lot of people saw it. Like thousands of people saw these videos back in 2014, which corroborates that somebody didn't just change the date. Like these actually are from 2014. We just didn't understand them to be real at the time, right?
I don't know if you can change the date. Is that possible to do this?
As far as I know, no. But I mean, you know, if you can teleport a plane, I guess you might be able to change the
maybe
date.
See if someone else can do this. See if anyone else can fake a video from 2014 and put it up on the Wayback Machine on archive.org.
But even so, what I'm saying is that we've seen it. I actually saw one of them myself, so I can even corroborate and testify to the fact that these were out there in 2014. And I didn't think it was real back then either, actually, you know.
Patent hijacking is a weird argument as we got into, because it's not like, I guess they would have kept control over, the company would have kept control over everything, and it's not like it would have fallen into But maybe you never know.
The company got sold though. They got sold the next year to NXP.
Yeah, NXP, right? They're a big semiconductor company over, I think, in Germany or something. But
yeah, Netherlands. Yeah, you're close. Yep.
But didn't they, like, there's some connection with the Carlyle Group and the Rothschilds there too? That
was the patent thing about these like nanotechnology patent. But that was the thing about where the individuals don't own those patents anyway. Like the company owns it and it gets patented under the individual by the company. So that's where I think that's a bit of a red herring, where they're maybe even trying to throw us off the real thing, which is these 20 semiconductor engineers and scientists that were going to China to help improve the factories and make them more efficient.
Okay.
And those are the people where I'm wondering, like, their intellectual property to me is the real value here, because the risk of deploying this technology, if it's real, is so high. I mean, look what happened. 2 videos leaked because somebody looked at it and like had an emotional reaction. Is like, oh, the world's got to know this.
Well, this is interesting. Let's get into that, because that's the next piece of evidence. So you have that the video is the actual evidence itself, right? And then I was mentioning to you that, hey, well, if this was really leaked, someone probably went to jail for this. Like, if you know, this is on the internet now, there's got to be a court case. Is there any evidence for that? And you went looking and you found a name. What is that name? And bring that. Can you bring that up again with the share screen?
More than a name, a full case.
Yeah, no, a whole court case with redacted documents that he's posted to Twitter about all this with the court
Edward
case.
C. Lynn. Yeah.
So
pull that up again.
Yeah, pull that up, please. Yeah, so apparently this guy did some time. It says that the videos are available, that whatever the classified content that he leaked is available. He's got all the right clearances and the right working. He worked in the right place, the right time. Everything just seems to match, a little too perfect and exact.
Yep, he was arrested at the right time. Makes sense. He's experiencing signals intelligence, which is what
arrested
we
on September 11th too, no doubt.
I love it. People might like that. Yeah, he flew this Ares spy plane where the witness saw 2 other planes. The French dad who lost his wife and child was told the Americans know what happened, that there was 2 AWACS in the area. Like, he could have literally been there on the plane at the night. Charges that result in life in prison. He was facing life in prison. First major incident of an active duty member of the Navy since the Cold War. Heavily redacted charge sheet, including all the dates being redacted. We tried to use AI and we can't figure it out. I mean, this is the charge sheet. These are all the charges. All the dates are redacted. Like, why are you redacting all the dates, right? Unless they're going to corroborate something.
That would corroborate if he was connected with MH.
The
you'd be able to tell that
redacted, though. The date, like, that's never
the other
redacted
thing too, right?
Right.
If you ask for the specific document and you list the specific date too, can they have to release it and unredact it, right?
I fired them, so we're gonna find out. I fired the NCIS and the FBI. FOIA, sorry. So He also had top secret and access to the Navy's black program portfolio. He was in the right type of squadron.
Yeah.
His assignment was during the right dates. Remember, February 14th, it happened in March.
Yeah.
And then he got arrested in September of 2015. So he didn't even make it through his whole deployment here.
Yeah.
He was part of this super secret squadron, the VPU squadron. They
Wizards.
claimed it didn't end up being a spy case at all.
Yeah, it's
and
not a spy case. It's not espionage because he just leaked it. It's more like
So he takes a plea deal. The classified information is available on the internet.
Yeah, so we know it's available on the internet. Is this it? Would this be it? Maybe.
Exactly. And then in 2014, he accidentally left 2 flight manifests in his flight suit from a deployment that included search and rescue code names. To me, I mean, he was there. He was there at the time, and that's what he took the manifest. There might have been evidence as well.
Hey, it's not that I want to believe, man. I'm just I came in this very skeptical, and I'm walking away with some something to really look into, some big names and stuff to look into, some big questions. So, I would love to see more, the debunks and stuff on this. You can go either way, and I'm not convinced on the footage itself with all the, like, as I pointed out, there's so much deep fake technology that just goes way back, early times. So I don't know that that's going to convince me completely. And as we move into the future, it's going to be harder and harder to, resolve things with just videos and stuff like that. But
exactly.
You've made some good points on the videos too, that the things that they would have to fake. And I don't have the expertise to really dig into all those things myself. But again, the challenge is on the record here on the podcast. So it's out there for anyone who does that kind of stuff to go and do. And as I said, one good test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. So all someone's got to do to prove you're wrong is just show it and make it right. So no one's done that yet. You could be the first. Looking forward to whatever people come up with and put stuff out on that. I'm going to open it up to some friends and public questions and stuff, and see if we can't get everyone's got doubts or questions to ask. So please be respectful to the guests, and you're welcome to come on and
just in case anybody asks about the Rolls-Royce engines, the Rolls-Royce engines apparently are supposed to be able to send data as well. That should have been able to corroborate the official story, but Rolls-Royce data just never came out, surprisingly enough. And I don't think we could get that data because it's a private company, but that's something else that I just find a little bit suspicious.
I have a question.
There was no hydrophones that picked up like where the crash would have been. They don't mention Diego Garcia as all, like the media and the government's official narrative like hide Diego Garcia as if it doesn't exist, when really Diego Garcia is like where all the information that they knew exactly what was going on, and that whether it ended up there or not, the information of what actually happened to this flight is there, and all the capabilities of monitoring it are there. One thing I really want to bring up, I don't know if you mentioned it, was that Don Lemon first went on to see it. It was like, oh, it was a black hole. It disappeared into a black hole. And everyone's like, I remember at the time being like, yeah, right. And then they're like, oh, it was aliens. Yeah, right. But it was like they put that out there just because, to be able to debunk essentially the videos you're now sharing and make people be like, oh, it's just so ridiculous, when in fact there is what looks like the solid evidence, and that the whole case you've put together goes hand in hand with the Nimitz and the Tic Tac encounters and all of that, but in the fact that it's showing that it's our technology and that it's the government's or secret project that's utilizing it and applying it.
I'm at the office. He just walked. Aiden just walked in.
Yeah, the Don Lemon thing is the weirdest thing I've ever seen on CNN, and that's actually saying something, because in this Don Lemon piece, he's just like, well, what if it was a black hole out of nowhere? And then the guests are just like kind of taken aback, and this the Department of Transport lady goes, well, even a small black hole would have sucked in our whole universe. What is this lady talking about? It was just the weirdest interaction I've ever seen. And that's including the thing about this lady trying to be on a boat and people just walking by her in this fake flood. So it's odd.
One last question about that supposed photo that had the metadata tagged to Diego Garcia was Philip Wood, you said his name?
Yeah,
and he was a passenger on that plane.
Executive.
And then he's never been seen of since either, right? Since that one thing. It was like the last upload of or ping from his phone. And
so a lot of people say, like, what do they do with these passengers, right? Now, you go the nefarious route, you say, you know what we're talking about there. The other side of it, though, is what if you just make deals to send these people back to the countries, right? China's never going to allow these people ever to speak again. That's easy. That's most of the passengers. If you're talking about the Western passengers, there's like maybe less than 10, a handful of them. Philip Wood, I would put him in witness protection. You give him a new name, he's never allowed to talk to anybody, make him sign an NDA. No one's ever going to find him again, right? But you could argue many different things in terms of what they might have done with the passengers. All I know, no families of the victims have reached out to me. None of them. You'd think there'd be at least one desperate person who wants answers. None have. Not a single one. And I don't plan on reaching out to them. But, I just find that very unusual.
Right. If it's the official story, then they're fish food. But yeah, I don't know, man. That's a good question because there was a number of things that have come up with the 9/11 stuff too about, was there a plane swap? Because Operation Northwoods and the 62 government document where they gave the idea of starting a war with Cuba by, switching a plane with a drone and then shooting it down and pretending like a bunch of college kids were killed, as the public would react and be like, oh, we need to go to war with Cuba. So the same kind of idea, switching these planes, using it to start a war. In this case, maybe using it to cover up semiconductor technology or scientists or some other work there. That seems to be the most nefarious conspiracy angle I've seen on that. Yeah, it's certainly a lot of, like I mentioned, the parallels to the 9/11 stuff that I brought up earlier with Systems Planning Corporation and the passengers aboard Flight 77 into the Pentagon. In fact, the pilot for Flight 77, which crashed into the Pentagon on 9/11, ran the Pentagon's MASCAL drills on which basically drilled for planes crashing into the Pentagon and how the Pentagon would respond. And he was like the head guy in charge of those drills. And then he ends up being the guy on the plane. It's just wild and weird. There's also a number of scientists who were on board that plane that belong to the radar physics group. And I'll have all these links posted in the description below for people that want to dig into this further. And hopefully someone can break this case, crack this case, or find something that's going to, if we can find these guys alive in another country, that would be,
just one.
All you need is just one. Yeah. Or, say that these scientists went to work for a secret lab somewhere. They said, listen, we're going to pretend you died on this plane, but we're going to give you a second chance. And, so they're working at some secret lab, maybe on Diego Garcia itself. Maybe that's where they have maybe that is the Area 51. Maybe they've moved all the Roswell stuff there and they're studying it out in the middle of nowhere.
It's a good place. I mean, you can't land commercial airliners there. They even have like a protected area around it where there's a no-fly zone. There's
just working. There's an NDA, right?
There's so much people don't know, man. And I love all these people that come on the shows and be like, oh, I know, and they're so damn sure of themselves. And I don't like anyone who's too sure of themselves. You always have to second guess yourself and second guess your assumptions going into anything. But you've got you've got a bunch of evidence now. I think we dig into that the Lynn fellow there.
Yeah.
Dig into him more. We're going to find some stuff here, man. This is if this is real and there's something more here, which I really feel like there could be, then it's either going to break and then something new is going to break in the next couple in the next couple of months or something, or who knows, maybe someone else has more videos or more stuff to leak, or maybe we'll get an interview with that guy who that's crazy, man.
The jail potentially for leaking these videos.
If that's the guy, it sounds so much.
Break the whole thing wide open.
The similarities in his case and the timing and everything. It's just too weird, man. It's just a little really
too. But I agree with you. Is that more stuff might come out? Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I got a question. It was, I believe, on Rex's Leak Project interview that you were mentioning a couple of Iranian potentials with fake passports on it. So that's like a whole nother aspect that if it was like an American op for something and like something to do with this high technology, that you would potentially see something like that, and or just another reason for why it potentially went down, but it's very suspicious.
Yeah, and initially, if you watch my Confessionals podcast, which was one of the first in-person ones that I did, actually the first in-person one I did, that I still didn't know, we didn't have any idea about this fire at that time. So I was either on, is this espionage or is this some type of UFO encounter type scenario?
Yeah.
And to your point, I try not to be certain about it. And then I was all on these fake Iranian passengers. They were traveling on stolen passports. They had changed their appearance to look like these passengers, these people. There's even a picture of the guy, the real guy, holding up his real passport going, that wasn't me on the plane. And they had pictures of him. It looks very similar. And keep in mind, almost all the passengers are Asian on this plane, except for a handful of people. Mm-hmm. These people would have stuck out. And they were supposedly refugees trying to get to Amsterdam. But why are you going to Beijing on a stolen passport from Malaysia? There's direct flights, especially if you're spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for these passports. Don't you want to mitigate how many security things you have to go through? Every country you go through is another huge amount of risk of you getting caught, right? So the fact that that got brushed under the rug like 2 days afterwards just seemed really weird, especially in a post 9/11 world where hijacking is one of the main possible like narratives here. It's still weird to me, honestly.
Hey, what have you seen about the black box beacons? And
so
have they ever been found?
I'm going to dig into that because I just saw somebody in the chat post that say that they should work for 30 days and go up to 20,000 feet underwater. Yeah, that's true. Like, how would we not get any black box pings, right? Like, I'm going to add that to my list of evidence because that's also strong evidence for why this plane didn't crash into the water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to dig into that and just confirm that that data. But whoever posted that in the chat, you're a hero. Thank you very much.
I don't know about the disappearance. Again, if the purpose of that's the only thing. That's one of the things that just I can't physically explain. Well, what happened to that plane with my understanding of technology and physics? It makes no sense. And I'm not going to try to go there. I'm just going to say that I don't know that the video. I don't know. Yeah. He got the video. Again, we went over all this, Mike. You have to go back.
Well, let me say this part about the science for you guys. So this is going to be a little bit compelling, I think, for you guys. So somebody told me that I should reach out to this guy, Salvatore Pius, who has these patents that you might be familiar with. I think they came out in 2018, Navy patents.
Yep.
Oh, so I sent him an email and say, hey. Yeah, so I sent him an email and say, hey, Mr. Pius, have you seen these videos at all? People are telling me they're similar to technology that, you've put in your patents. He emails me back in 12 hours, tells me, let's set up an interview. I haven't interviewed anybody before. Okay. This is my first ever interview. It's going to be on Sunday. I'm going to talk to him about the science. I want to learn everything about the science of his patents. And if I'm not going to we're not going to talk about the videos in the first interview. He wants to do more than one. So the first one's going to be about digging into the science. I want to be able to speak to it from the layman's perspective where people like us can understand exactly what his patents really mean. And then after that, potentially the follow-up ones, we'll talk about the videos a little bit. So I think that might be where we can kind of dig into what's really happening in these videos from this zap, from these orbs, and really help people like us understand it.
Oh, that's awesome that Sal's doing your show. So Sal Pius is going to be on Alien Scientists here on November 12th.
Oh, that's the week after. Awesome.
The week after you. So,
So you should check out mine and then play off of that for sure, man.
Yeah. So where can people find your channel, Ashton? On YouTube?
So I have the same tag as I have that you see on the screen right here. It's at JustXAshton on YouTube as well. I'll go ahead and maybe you can actually find it and pull it up. I've already got almost 1,000 subscribers, I think, just from posting a couple of videos over the last week. I just got it set up. Yeah, there it is right there.
There you are, man. You got all these. So you got the heat sinking videos, all the stuff's up there. You got
a couple of debunks up there. I was actually just working last night. I decided to start stream while I was putting together all evidence. We had a nice little chat while I was working on the all evidence link. Just because I think it's fun for people to watch along.
I definitely am going to subscribe. And I want to check out how you do with Sal the week before, so I can see I'm a bit more familiar with his patents and the technology and the deep physics of it. So we're gonna be
That's awesome.
It's gonna be a little bit more technical when I get him on here. Hopefully, so yeah, definitely come back and check out that in a week after he goes on your show, and people go check out your channel over there, and they can go see that. What else was I gonna say? Yeah, you got any other cool interviews coming up too? I know Danny Jones, the Concrete Podcast, asked me to check you out. He said what do you know about this guy? Ashton. I was like, oh, he's coming on my show Friday, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if.
I mean, I've been keeping a lot of my appearances close to the chest, just because as we started, you saw there's quite a lot of people trying to prevent me from talking to people and say things that are untrue. So what I'll say is there's some exciting stuff coming up for sure, and stay tuned for it. I will announce stuff, the moment that I've got it kind of confirmed and it's been solidified. But you're not going to expect a lot of announcements too far in advance from me, no matter how big it is. So even if I was going on Joe Rogan, you're not going to hear about it until right after I show up on there.
Wow.
So,
well,
that was if that were to happen. It's not. I'll go ahead and spoil it. It's not. Yeah, but
you're welcome to repost this interview on your own channel or take clips from it as well. I appreciate that. Any other questions from the audience? We got Mike.
I've got two last questions. First, are you related, Mr. Forbes, to the Forbes 500 family at all?
No, I'm not. Everybody asked that. Even before I got into all this, everyone would think, oh, is Steve Forbes your uncle? He ran for president, or is it Forbes magazine? If I was related to any of those people, I'd probably have enough money where I wouldn't give a crap about any of this stuff. I'd probably be on the other side of it, trying to keep it quiet.
And how about Ashton Kutcher?
And no, so I want to take my name back from him. So I want to get famous. The only reason why I would care about getting famous, which I don't want, would be to take my name back from Ashton Kutcher, because literally every time anyone meets me, oh, Ashton Kutcher. No, not Ashton Kutcher.
Yes.
Good one though.
It's like Jeremy Corbell ruined that name for me too. So
yeah, you're the real from it, man.
So I just wanted to say that your analysis though of the three spheres and how they're going around and how they're going ahead of it, how they're doing this endothermic as opposed to exothermic reactions, and that this is all in these videos from 2014. That all in its own is a huge amount of information to the true UFO researchers out there, that as soon as I saw that, I was like, an average faker is not going to think of any of these aspects that literally are showing new pieces of information on how this technology actually works. And that they essentially, it's turned me from being like, yeah, right, frickin' whatever, but yeah, right, aliens, more likely, yes, this is actually our technology one way or another, sort of thing.
I'm with you on that.
Unless it's all deep state information, disinfo, right?
If it is, then they're running it on me as well. If that's the case,
me too,
right?
Huh? Geez, you did a good job
when I saw
here
that
tonight.
too, I saw the same thing, and I thought like maybe this can explain crop circles, maybe this can explain contrails that people see. I mean, when I saw those particle system, it kind of, I had the same thought about, this links to a lot of UFOlogy that I had been seeing over the last 5-6 years too. So totally agree with you on that one, Bernai.
I'm still not convinced that it's like it could be deep fake. I don't know. I'm always skeptical. I'm always second guessing everything, man. Fine. But I definitely the fact that the video is up from 2014. You see that on archive.org, and then you got the name of the guy who got. He's got this court case and everything. Lots of things. There's synchronicities
as
there.
well as the satellites that would have taken that original video. You were able to track them and show so much. Like you literally built one heck of a court case. So it's like, regardless of anyone's beliefs, you've put a whole bunch of evidence together that really needs to be addressed, because it's a substantial amount. It's either the biggest psyop of all time for whatever purpose, but it's so much that it's there, and it's now a giant elephant in the room.
Yeah, that's why I wrote the letter to Congress, as I got to the point where I'm like, this is more evidence we've had of like any court case ever. Like it at least deserves an official investigation to figure out what's going on here, right? So yeah, I totally agree with you there. I like your analysis in general, all you guys. And in general, like I'm free. I love everybody kind of taking the evidence and coming to their own conclusions, right? They want to think it's non-human intelligence, psyop. If they want to think it's,
right.
in my case, espionage type thing, right?
Everyone's welcome to believe whatever theory they want here, and I'm not trying to push anything or anything here on anyone. We report, you decide, and
exactly, it's a good way to go about it.
Oh, we got one last question in here before I wrap this up for the night, man. You got a question for us? Is UFO Shane just joined?
We can ignore that question.
I don't know if anyone's there, man. So hey, if anyone,
can you hear me?
Nope. Okay.
Hey, what's going on? I have a question, Ashton. So let me get this straight. I've looked into it a little bit. We've had our tizzies quite publicly, but let me just say this. So you're saying that the aircraft did not crash, but was teleported to Diego Garcia by Tic Tac technology to save scientists that were on the plane, and that the wreckage that was found was lithium fire wreckage, but that wreckage was planted by a government operation?
Not exactly in those terms, but pretty close. So, I think that we have proven that there is most likely a lithium-ion battery fire, which is supported by over 12 witnesses. That the motive to cover up that kind of fire, would be a pretty mundane event, would have to be something pretty important, which could be consistent with utilizing this technology. As to where exactly it gets teleported to, we can't know for sure. Now, we can speculate based on circumstantial evidence that the plane somehow ended up at Diego Garcia, because that's what Mark Dugain thought. That's what KT, the witness, thought. That's what basically every single conspiracy thought that it somehow got to. It's one of the only places you could hide a 777.
Well, it's the Area 51 of the ocean, basically, right?
And that's what I'm hearing from behind the scenes, is that this is essentially the Area 51 of the ocean.
I've heard clone stories from there. I mean, Ashton, I believe in a lot of stuff, but it's really hard, man, for me to think that an airplane was teleported and then all the victims were paid off by someone and now they're just roaming. I mean, that's a lot of speculation for me, man. I mean, personally, that's my problem with it. It's like, you're like, if we find one victim, if we find this one guy, I mean, yeah, that would be great, dude. It would be awesome to think that these people aren't sitting there having their bones eaten by the salt of the ocean. But I can't, me personally, man, I'm trying.
That's fine, man. And I think
I don't think Shane was necessarily saying that they went to Diego Garcia either, or that necessarily they
I don't know about the teleported. Just seems a little weird for me. My physics brain to wrap itself around. But I know they have the technology to hijack a plane by remote control and fly it to the ground.
I agree with that.
So it could have been. They could have just taken it from there and flown it to Diego Garcia.
That's what a lot of people thought. That's what had happened. Yeah.
Then maybe they put this. I don't know, because a lot of people were coming up to that conclusion. A lot of that was going around, and then all of a sudden these videos come on the scene, and we got a whole bunch of people saying it's Tic Tac UFOs and teleportation. That kind of does almost sound like maybe it's a psyop or something to try to because it sounds too unbelievable and far fetched until I see some scientists come forward or the technology or someone actually demonstrating it, and that would be great if Sal Pays is coming on the podcast. That'd be great if he can come to our lab. That's what I'm going to be asking him mostly is like, can you come and we can physically demonstrate this? Because
I know Kurt Mungo asked him that as well, but he didn't do it.
That's my big hang up on this, and that's why we created the Falcon Space Labs and falconspace.org to basically have a spot for people who claim they have this technology, that this technology exists, to prove it and show it, and to declassify it in a form where once it's out there, man, the cat's not going back in the bag. Just like you put his Lynn's name out here on the, that's not going back in the bag. I'm going to have 12 people who watch this going to FOIA that guy and come up and start digging into that. So
that's what we really should do though, is we should try to make FOIA better. We should try to make FOIA a better tool to be used, because right now, I mean, come on, all you got to do is put something in a black project with a private company and you're not going to get shit. I mean, that's just, it's never going to happen. I do love, I'm friends with John Greenwald and everything. I do love what he does, but FOIA is not everything. I would like to say one more thing though. Ashton, I can tell you're very passionate about this, man. All I would ask you, dude, is you've gotten a lot of stuff. I mean, I've posted things as well about you and your DMs with certain people and stuff. Just try to be more open-minded, brother. It's a really hard pill to swallow if this is true. I don't think it is, but if it is, I've done my best. I've talked to Mellow Demon, and that's the only reason why I'm not trying to be as more cordial about this, because he's calmed me down a bit, and we've worked out our problems. But try to be more open to it. If someone doesn't believe what you believe, man, who really knows what's going on, man? There's could be werewolves running around, for fuck's sake. I mean, honestly,
Bigfoot's jumping out of portals and dino beavers, man. I mean, come on, this is
it's hard to be more open-minded than thinking that teleportation is possible in my mind. But I'm with you guys. Like, that's almost harder for me to believe in teleportation than almost non-human intelligence, right? Because it seems just straight up impossible. But quantum teleportation is real. And I think that what you should ask Sal Pius is there a unifying theory of quanta and macro? Because that's the missing link that can allow quantum teleportation to become macroscopic teleportation.
Yes, it is.
Hey, Shane, I want to thank you for jumping on here and being respectful and
I appreciate it too, Shane.
Questions. And
no problem,
again,
I'll take your words to heart, Shane. I just want to let you know that as well.
No problem. It was nice. I'll see you guys. I just got off work. I'm gonna go lay down. I'll see you guys later.
All right, thank you. All right, well, guys, thank you, Anthony, as well. Thank you for jumping on. You got questions before we close this out? Anything you want to plug? Anything news announcements?
I was just wondering if there any way to find out what data the AWACS and other military planes had.
Yeah, smart question. So keeping this one close to my vest as well. But what I'll say is there are people out there theoretically looking at connections to how we can prove that there might be AWACS in the area, which could be a missing link as well. Right now, one of the things that came from one of the FIAs from the Black Vault, I think, is that the signals intelligence usually operates in threes. So we've got a satellite, we've got an MQ-1C Gray Eagle. What's our third thing there, right? Kate T saw 2 other planes with navigation lights. The French dad was told that there were AWACS in the areas. That was on the Netflix documentary. So is there another thing there? And was Edward Seelin on that plane, right? So there might be radar data, other data that would point to that plane being there. Now, it'd probably be hard to get access to the specific data from it, but if we can prove there's another asset there, like that adds another element too, right?
Is the Eagle like an AWACS type plane?
The MQ-1C is not. That's a drone. I think the AWACS ones, usually when you're talking about that, it's talking about like the ones with the radar dishes on them, the weird circle thing-majigs on the top.
Like the giant Boeings with them on top. Yeah.
I know they beam the radar down so you can't go under it.
Yeah, and those two are apparently supposed to be able to like jam planes, might even be able to like hijack planes like you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
That's why like I haven't ruled out like any narratives. I just like, and I used to be way on the espionage narrative, where now I'm more on this weird, like kind of maybe saving them, but also maybe espionage. But there's still a lot of narratives that are possible. Like even AI taking control of the world. There's a sentient program is how they control these satellites. It was declassified in 2012, which is an advanced AI. I mean, even that kind of stuff is like, I don't know, the whole AI angle creeps me out in general, but I digress. That's a story for another day.
In response to your question too, Anthony, about the AWACS and some of the declassified stuff, I know that Aidan Monahan has filed more FOIAs into the 9/11 stuff than anyone that I know of. He's way more than John Greenwald. And he wrote a book with all the FOIA evidence that he got back from the government in relation to 9/11, with questions related to the AWACS, the flight termination technology, the flight controls, was the plane swaps, anything like that. The NTSB data that he got all that. He's the guy, Aidan Monahan, who got a lot of that declassified and disclosed. It's all in this book. $12. You can buy it paperback. Definitely worth adding to your library if you're a scholar of this type of stuff. This is undebunkable FOIA facts straight from the government with regards to this, and you can see he points out a lot of the discrepancies, things that do not add up in relation to that side of things. Another book that's good for 9/11 and people who want to research and read and understand that event would be Another 19 by Kevin Ryan. It is a $17 paperback. You can get the Kindle version for just $9. But this book blows the lid wide open into, all kinds of dark avenues in terms of this stuff. If people are interested in researching and learning more about that, go check out those two books. That's just related to purely 9/11 stuff. This was 2 years before what happened with Malaysian Airlines, but it's the same type of technology. Yeah, it's the same kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. It looks really interesting.
In place. So if people who are interested, go check out that.
I have one last question, and then I forgot what it is, so I'm reading my notes.
Yeah, the awesome job on Rex on Leak Project too. By the way, that was
thanks.
When I saw you on there, that was when I was like, I got to reach out and have this guy on. So
oh yeah, he's super nice, and yeah, we got some other stuff coming up too. It'll be pretty big, I think, and yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipe. I think it's just getting bigger and bigger. Snowball's growing, and like you guys said, there's a lot of these threads that we can still pull where. It might just all of a sudden, boom, we've got proof right out of nowhere if the right person were to. You
just got to be skeptical, man, because when I was looking into 9/11, man, it was like you'd go on this one theory and you find out you're just chasing a red herring that some disinfo agent planted for you to be like, all right, well, let's confuse people and throw in.
There's been a lot of that.
Yeah. It's been a lot. There is a lot of that, and UFOs and everywhere too. I mean,
even in this case, like I was looking through my evidence link with people yesterday on the stream, and I was deleting evidence where I was like, "Oh, this isn't even in play anymore." Right? Yeah. It's like that's why you really have to follow the evidence, and that's why I try to keep the narrative separate. Where it's like, okay, believe whatever narrative you want, but let's build the case of the evidence. And that's why I think that a lot of you guys here have, been somewhat convinced. Where you might have been very skeptical, and now you've moved a little bit more towards the side too, where it really does show the strength of the evidence.
Definitely. And so it's the fact that there's the Tic Tacs, the Pentagon, acknowledging the Nimitz and stuff, and that these are so similar to them that makes it, in my mind, the most probable, believable, and as a case of if it true evidence that it is American or our technology being implemented. And with that, I just want one last question of your thoughts on such people as Jeremy Corbell, Cowbell, Lou Elizondo, and David Grush, as them coming out as government whistleblowers, as you also are a contractor. Do you associate yourself in that sort of group or different, or...
Not really. I'm more like you guys, honestly. Being a contractor, I don't have any secret information about technology or UAPs, what have you. It's more so to establish that I'm, a normal person that's not too deep into the woo kind of situation. Those people are at another level in terms of they have compartmentalized information related to their clearance, where the part of the reason why it's a bit different is they have NDAs where they have to be careful about what they say, otherwise they go to jail. For me, because I don't have that, I can speak freely. We can talk about Diego Garcia. We can speculate at all this stuff, and I don't have to worry, right? Yeah. In terms of what I believe with respect to them, I'd say it's varying degrees. I find David Grush very credible just because he's willing to go in front of Congress, speak under oath, under penalty of perjury, and say those things, versus people that just go on TV and say stuff, right? I don't put as much credibility into them. But it doesn't mean that they're not wrong. It's just that it's hard for me. I'm skeptical like you guys, I want to see people who are really willing to put it all on the line, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, will I have one of the questions from the audience is, will Ashton come back one day? And I think we covered everything that you have to offer right now. I think if you have a breakthrough in the case coming up, any new evidence, something else comes out, we'll definitely be having you back on to dive into that stuff. But for right now, we've left people a pretty good trail of some things to look into and track down. I think this is definitely not case closed either way.
Case open now.
Yeah, definitely case wide open, and a lot of more people interested and a lot more eyes on this now, thanks to you. So that's awesome because this is kind of something that it was one of those mysteries. They never found this thing, and people talk about it from time to time, but man, it's good that someone's finally putting it out there and making a real big deal out of it.
Have you ever looked into... Oh, sorry.
I hope that leads to some government action in the future of, prompting a follow-up investigation because why didn't they find it? They should have opened a government investigation, at some point to be like, well, something happened to this plane, and we're gonna try to dig into this a little deeper, especially if there's scientists involved and Rothschilds and Carlyle Group and some of these people. So yeah, I think it's but go ahead, Anthony.
Have you ever looked into TWA Flight 800? Because that was a really suspicious case.
I think it was shot down. I think it was the missile firing that they covered it up.
And actually, somebody was telling me on just a recent podcast I did that there might be some other advanced, not related to this advanced technology, but some other microwave technology or something. But to me, what I remember is that it was definitely a cover up, that we shot it down and couldn't admit to it for whatever reason. Yeah. So it's like there's been quite a few cases where like weird stuff's happened where the government and military has just not been able to admit or refuse to admit it. Even before I saw these videos, I knew the government had to know more about this plane. It's a Rogue 777 in a post 9/11 world. You're telling me we have no idea what happened to it? Like, no chance, right?
Not likely. Yeah, I think you're on the right track with some of this stuff. The idea that this thing teleported to Diego Garcia and the advanced physics, I think that there's yet to be proven and seen, at least until I'm convinced of it. And I think a lot of other people share that sentiment. But
that's fair.
And you're not necessarily saying it was teleported to Diego Garcia. You're saying that the evidence shows something from Diego Garcia and that it shows that it was teleported to somewhere and what looks like them shooting up, trying to save a flight that was on fire.
Yeah, and teleportation could theoretically be another dimension. It could be another planet in the universe. It could be the future due to time dilation, or it could just be somewhere else on Earth, right? And it's going to be almost impossible to tell where that went, right? What I'm just saying there is that there is some circumstantial evidence that says maybe it somehow got to Diego Garcia. That's where all the conspiracy theories, pointed it, right? So I appreciate you clarifying that because I think it is an important point of clarification. Yeah. And the teleportation, like I think we ruled out the other options. And it's not, in our opinion, it's not a wormhole anymore, or even necessarily a black hole. The way we describe it is macroscopic decoherence. That's the scientific term for it, which is essentially the quantum teleportation version, or the macroscopic version of quantum teleportation, which is still pretty hard to believe, honestly. But I was surprised to find there's a lot of science supporting it. So, I would say dig into that with Salvatore Pais, and I bet he has a lot of insight to it.
Since it looks like we have gravity control, maybe the plane was like rescued by another plane, pulled really fast to another location. That would have appeared, like it disappeared.
Exactly. Precisely. And that's kind of what we're expecting or we're anticipating, right? And either that somehow put this fire out and was able to stop the fire, pull the energy from the battery so that they stopped being on fire, or just allowed it to land somewhere safely. Again, it's all highly speculative, right? I'm trying to focus on
That's not a bad idea, though, Anthony, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a portal or wormhole. It could have been three of them going around it and creating this field that then they all accelerate at that same speed in that field to wherever it goes, as opposed to opening up a time-space portal sort of thing. More just creating a bubble of warp speed or this higher speed technology that they would be operating on.
That sounds the best explanation I've ever heard. So I like what you're saying a lot here.
Well, I'd like to see some of it in a laboratory or some patents or something. It's got to, something's got to give, man. If this is, disclosure, it's going to happen through.
We need the secret sauce.
Guys, Ashton Forbes, go check him out on YouTube. Thank you for, being with us tonight. And thank you, everyone, for the audience and all the great comments and questions.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you the rest of the panel as well for all the great questions. I think they were awesome. So it was one of the best interviews I've ever done. Appreciate it, guys.
Awesome. I appreciate it. All right, Bernie, want to throw on a little AI, some music, and cool outro tunes and stuff? Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.